Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 8 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. A different kind of engagement. The Vermilion Forbidden City appeared to be in a bustle as this was the night before the arranged political marriage between Schneisel L. Britannia, representing the ruling Deception faction, and the young Empress Tianzi of the Chinese Federation, solidifying the alliance between the two powers and allowing the Decepticons full access the large nation's resources and its people. Despite the truly sinister applications, there appeared to be a party between those decorated of the former Britannian nation, including several members of the now-defunct royal family such as Anticlea, Odysseus, Karini, and Layla, and those who were in favor of the Chinese Federation's high eunuchs who would get a fair share of the profit and power that would result from all of this. Of course, more than a few Decepticons were present as well. Starscream was currently present with the high eunuchs along with Schneisel, Kanan Maldini, and the reluctant Tianzi. Guarding the perimeter of the gated city were several smaller teams of Decepticons. On the north end was Thundercracker and Onslaught, on the south side were Slipstream and Brawl, the east end was guarded by Swindle and Vortex, and the west side was covered by Blastoff alone. There were also a pair of smaller Decepticon ships encircling the perimeter, each one filled with Viacon troopers ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Hey, remind me again why we're doing this. Blastoff questioned over the radio with his fellow Combaticons and the Seekers for the sake of conversation. To gain control of the Chinese Federation. I thought it was obvious. Vortex replied. Well, yeah, I could figure out that much. Blastoff replied. I mean, why do we have to do this whole wedding thing? It seems like a waste of time. Yeah, the whole idea of these fleshies interfacing, Swindle shivered at the thought of it. I think it's a waste of time, too. Brawl added. We should just take this whole place over like what we did with Britannia. Ordinarily, that would be the option we'd take. Onslaught told his team. But given the Autobots and the Black Knights have resurfaced and have made things really difficult for us, throwing all our resources into destroying another superpower is only going to give them more opportunities to strike at us. I don't like it either. Thundercracker added. But if this can allow us to gain control of this nation's resources, then I'm fine with it. But you sound rather reluctant, Thundercracker. Slipstream said. I've noticed you acting that way since we first started this operation. You didn't seem to be so reluctant when we overthrew Britannia. It's the high eunuchs. The Blue Seeker revealed. Dealing with Starscream alone is enough, but him and those worthless politicians. I would prefer watching those human videos on their information superhighway, at least they're partly entertaining. And disgusting, Swindle added. These humans actually enjoy watching recordings of their own kind interfacing with each other. And the methods they use. Too much information, Swindle. Blastoff exclaimed. Don't go and put that stuff in my head. Look, I don't like dealing with those eunuchs any more than the rest of you, Onslaught began. Then let's just squish 'em. Those guys are so annoying. Brawl interrupted. But would you rather be caught in the crossfire between these guys and the bots and their own human pets? Onslaught continued. Point taken. Vortex said with a reluctant sigh. So, keep your optics peeled for any sign of them. Slipstream said. Even with the city secure with our anti-ground bridge generator, we'd be fools not to expect some form of interference from them. With that, everyone resumed their guard duty. While what Thundercracker said about the high eunuchs was true, he left out the part where he seemed somewhat concerned for Tianzi. It wasn't that he'd grown to care about her or anything, she was just so small and helpless, and it seemed unnecessary for someone so tiny to be used as a means to acquire more resources. Honestly, Thundercracker wondered why Schneisel didn't choose to marry the high eunuchs instead. He'd seen information on the humans' internet that humans can have multiple partners in their engagement. Once again, he cursed the idea of politics. You realize that we're essentially prisoners, don't you? Anticlea said as she, Odysseus, Guinevere, Karini, and Layla gathered in the middle of the party. Of course, we've been prisoners since Britannia's fall 6 months prior. Karini pointed out as if it were obvious. At the very least, Schneisel has made our arrangement more comfortable. Odysseus commented. staying in his personal estate, as opposed to being subjected to slavery and labor. Do not mention the name of that traitorous man, Guinevere exclaimed. He betrayed every single one of us the minute he sided with those abominations. Keep it down, Layla spoke in a hush whisper. If they hear us, perhaps there may be a way we can convince high eunuchs to come over to our side. Anticlea commented. If we were to take Tianzi prisoner, we may even gain some leverage over them, even Schneisel and the Decepticons. Mother, you would consider abducting a child. Odysseus looked rather appalled. Isn't that more or less what's happening to her right now, at the hands of the Decepticons? Karini questioned. In case you've forgotten Odysseus, that's essentially what Britannia does. Layla spoke with contempt. Even with members of our own family. On that note, what the Decepticons are doing now, really isn't all that different from what we've tried to do. Layla, how dare you? Guinevere stated. You would compare us to those abominations. They are trying to destroy the world. All Britannia has ever done is seek to bring order. By essentially committing genocide on a daily business, just because we can. Layla replied. Perhaps I should have followed Euphemia's lead and left the homeland when I had the chance. So, everything has been prepared then. One of the high eunuchs asked Starscream as they stood around the conjoined throne where Schneisel and Tianzi sat together, Geass standing particularly close to Tianzi with Sayoko by her side and Kanan at Schneisel's side. Yes, Starscream confirmed. Once the union has been made tomorrow, you high eunuchs shall stand by our side as honorary Decepticons. Excellent. The smallest high eunuch smiled. We'll be looking forward to meeting with Lord Megatron in person. However, I must also express warning. Starscream said. Lord Megatron is rather intolerable when it comes to failure. So, try not to in the future. Perish the thought. The most overweight high eunuch waved his hand with a slight laugh. Schneisel glanced towards Tianzi, who looked nothing short of miserable, and it was clear to understand why. Do not worry, Your Majesty. He began, getting her attention. I realize that you may essentially be forsaking your freedom with this arrangement, but I promise it won't be all bad. I'll see to it that you are kept safe and comfortable. You won't have to deal with any more Decepticons after this. Aside from that, this way your people won't have to get caught in the middle of such a bloody struggle. I promise, everything will be fine. Well, Tianzi wasn't quite sure what to say to that. Though she was still rather young, even she could hear the sinister intent behind Schneisel's voice. She was, by no means, a fool. She knew that she was about to become a slave, something she was rather used to under the high eunuch's rule. Your concern is warranted, Sir Schneisel. Geass said, speaking as diplomatic as possible with Sayoko standing close to both girls. But perhaps she'd be more comfortable around someone she actually knows, as opposed to a complete stranger. Of course, a reasonable request. Schneisel nodded. Which is why I also welcome your company, Lady Geass. I will see to it you and your friend, Miss Shinozaki, will be living in comfort as well. Thank you. Geass nodded, maintain a face of neutrality. As she spoke, Sayoko kept a small device attached to her wrist, one she was able to utilize with taps of her fingers to send signals to an outside party, deep underneath the consulate. The time is almost here. Shink told his group, consisting of Zhou Xionglan, Hong Ji-yu, and other leaders of the Chintz Federation military that sided with him. Tomorrow, we'll make our move to secure the Empress and meet with the Black Knights and the Autobots. The Prime Dragon Protocol has forced us to cut off our only means of communicating with them. Hong Ji-yu said, can we be certain this plan of theirs will work? What if it was changed in some way? They'll send us a signal of some sorts. Zhou answered, but for now, let us just assume the plan has remained unchanged. Shink knew the risks of this, but it didn't matter to him. All that mattered was making sure Tianzi was safe and that his promise was kept to her. He owed her that much after saving his life so many years ago. Flashback. A younger Shink was forced to the ground in front of the toddler Tianzi, much to her shock as she tried to protest his treatment. But Your Majesty, this man broke the law by trying to save the life of an inmate. Why yes, but I get brought medicine when I'm sick. And the person who brings it isn't punished. Tianzi tried to say. There's no comparing that prisoner with you, Your Majesty. Don't argue, the banquet will be starting soon. A high eunuch stated. Do as Her Majesty commands. If he's taken to face the law, he'll be executed. That caused Tianzi to gasp in shock. But that's wrong. That's wrong. He was doing something good. And he shouldn't die because of it. Shink could only look up in surprise. Was the Empress going out of her way just for his sake? The sake of a lowly servant. And to his great surprise, he was cleared of his crimes by Tianzi. He owed her a great debt, and he may have an idea of how to repay it. Officer School. The young Tianzi asked as she and Shink stood on a balcony, overlooking the night sky. Yes, that's how I'll use the life that you spared. He replied. I wish to protect you in any way that I can. I would like to go too. She said. To the outside. Outside? Shink asked. Outside of the Forbidden City. Tianzi looked to the stars in wonder. To school, or maybe the sea, where you can find all kinds of hot and yummy foods and lots of friends to make. Shink could only look toward her in sympathy, knowing that despite being the Empress, she was still trapped in her own home. But he would see to it she would get her wish. Yes, very well. She looked toward him in surprise. One day, if you still wish, I will take you away from here, Your Majesty. Really? Tianzi asked in excitement. Shink kneeled down to her level. It's my way of thanking you, for sparing my life. He offered her his pinky, much to her confusion as she didn't know what it meant. This is how we make promises, outside the city. Tianzi looked to her own pinky before locking it with his. An everlasting promise. Shink vowed. For all time. Tianzi vowed back. End flashback. Back at the party, Kanan happened to glance at a shimmer in the sky that didn't appear to be a star. My lord, something is coming. Schneisel drew his attention toward where Kanan was looking, followed by Starscream, the High Eunuchs, even Tianzi, Kagaya and Sayoko. The object in question became much clearer the closer it came toward the area, even catching the attention of Onslaught and Thundercracker from the North Gate as they radioed their fellow Combaticons and Seekers. The object appeared to be a drone-like device that flew toward the middle of the palace courtyard where the party was taking place, drawing everyone's attention as the Decepticons quickly entered the courtyard as well. The drone then projected a large hologram of a certain individual that every person and Cybertronian present recognized. Optimus Prime. Starscream exclaimed as he, Brawl, Blast Off, and Vortex readied their weapons, with several Viacons dropping in from the circling battleships and aiming their Energon blasters as well, nearly causing a panic. Stand down, you fools. It's a hologram. Thundercracker told everyone. Your weapons won't affect it. It's really him. Odysseus, Layla, and even Karini looked in awe while Guinevere and Anticlea glared hatefully at the hologram Autobot leader, blaming Britannia's fall on him. That is Optimus Prime. Tianzi thought in surprise, looking in awe at the hologram as well with shaky eyes. Kagaya was quick to place a hand on her shoulder to calm her down, glancing at her with a subtle eye expression, one that Tianzi seemed to understand. Someone certainly has nerve. One of the High Eunuchs commented as the others looked toward the hologram with overconfidence. I'm beginning to understand how he was so quick to challenge Britannian authority. Starscream. The hologram of Optimus spoke as the Decepticon second-in-command approached him. I had suspected you would be involved in this matter. However, I am rather surprised that you seek a route that appears to be devoid of bloodshed. I do not appreciate that sort of impression you have of me, Prime. Starscream said. I'm no Megatron. If a conflict can be avoided, I will take that route. We both know that is not true. Which is why I suspect the true mastermind is standing here before us. Optimus glanced past Starscream to see the approaching Schneisel, with Kanan close behind him. Schneisel L. Britannia, I presume. Indeed. I have to say, I'm rather humbled to be standing in your presence, Optimus Prime. Schneisel appeared to have spoken in a form of courtesy. The alien who stands is an equal to the masked man who challenged Britannia and shook the world to its core. You've obtained quite the reputation. And you as well, having betrayed your nation and your family. Optimus replied. And now you seek to enslave a child in order to hand over an entire nation to Megatron. While Britannia's fate was rather unfortunate, they had it coming. Their constant need for pointless conquest and destruction would have ultimately destroyed our world. Schneisel said, casting a glance at the glaring remains of the royal family before addressing Optimus again. As for the circumstances surrounding the young Empress, I'm merely seeking a compromise where no fighting is involved. The people of the Chinese Federation will be spared, and I'll see to it the Empress is well taken care of. I would have thought someone as idealistic as you would appreciate my efforts for trying to maintain peace. Peace through tyranny is not peace at all. Optimus disagreed. Did you come all this way to debate philosophy with me, Optimus? Schneisel asked. While I certainly wouldn't mind such a conversation, there are easier ways to go about this. I have not come to debate with you, Schneisel. The hologram of the Prime said. I have come with a challenge. A game of chess, to be specific. Chess? Schneisel asked, causing even Starscream and the other Decepticons to look in confusion. Indeed. If I win, you will call off this arrangement and release young Tianzi and anyone she wishes to our protective custody. Optimus said. We all know that the High Eunuchs are using her as a puppet, and they hold the power. So, you can still come to an arrangement with them, even without the child in their possession. Tianzi looked in surprise, even gasping. He's doing this, for me. She glanced towards Kagaya, almost instinctively as she gave a smile and a wink, followed by a nod and a smile from Sayoko as well. He thinks he can just steal our toy away from us. One of the High Eunuchs thought. He knows that people support the Empress, and if she goes with him, they'll flock to the Autobots and Black Knights. We will not allow this. I'll agree to your terms, Optimus Prime. Schneisel said. However, if we're playing over the custody of individuals, I have my own terms. If you lose the game, you must surrender yourself and Zero to us. I cannot make that promise for Zero. Optimus replied immediately. He is not with me at this time and attending to business elsewhere. I will not make any agreements behind his back. However, I will still offer myself as collateral, should I lose the game. Fair enough, I suppose. Schneisel accepted. Schneisel, I feel I must protest. Starscream told his companion. This is undoubtedly an Autobot trick. Perhaps, but we lack a means to prove that. The former Britannian prince said to the Seeker commander. Besides, we have the advantage here. Neither the Autobots nor the Black Knights can enter the Forbidden City, and our forces have complete control over the entire area. So, I don't suspect a trap. He turned toward Optimus. Is there a way for us to compete in your game, considering you are undoubtedly broadcasting from such a far distance? There is. Optimus confirmed as the drone displaying his own hologram began to condense it so that the Optimus hologram shrank down to be on equal height to that of Schneisel, while also broadcasting a holographic chess board in between the two of them. Schneisel smiled in amusement. What a fine evening of entertainment this has turned into. It didn't take long for the game to start. A chair was brought up for Schneisel as he sat on one side of the holographic chess table, taking the solid pieces, while Optimus sat across from him in his own solar graphic seat, taking the transparent pieces. They would voice their pieces to move to the desired spots, and the hologram would move the pieces to the user's wishes. Everyone watched the game with anticipation. As they watched, Sayoko had used her secret device to send a code to Shink and the others what was happening, and keeping an eye out for any hidden messages Optimus may give her or Kagaya to relay to Shink. Rook to e7. Optimus instructed, with one of his rooks moving to remove a bishop from Schneisel's side. Pawn to b3. Now it was Schneisel's turn, one of his pawns moving to remove the other rook from Optimus' side of the board. Lelouch and the others were quite correct. Optimus thought. Schneisel is a master of this game, it's understandable why Lelouch was unable to defeat him in the past. However, my intent is not to defeat him. King to d5. Optimus' movement of the king was a surprise to even Schneisel. Optimus wasn't moving his king into a dangerous position, but the king wasn't even in danger yet. You're moving king so early. If the king does not lead, how can he expect his subordinates to follow? Optimus voiced his reason. I see, a leader has to set the best example, and I agree. Schneisel seemed to understand. That being said, I'll do the same. King to a-4 inches. Optimus was somewhat surprised at Schneisel performing the same action himself, however, his intent still was not to win. The message had been delivered. Moving the king, that's Lelouch's move. Sayoko recognized the signal and began to relay the information to Shink via her device. As the game continued, Starscream, Thundercracker, and Onslaught found themselves looking at every possible detail in each move, trying to catch something that could be seen as an enemy code. Even Kanan found himself caught in the action. He's good. Schneisel has never gone this long in a game before. Kanan thought. I know the Prime is planning something, but what? Starscream wondered. Is it the movement of the pieces? Is he trying to gain an idea of Schneizal's strategy through this game? Optimus Prime is a master strategist. I have little doubt this game is a farce of some sort, but still, for someone to actually match him like this, I'll give credit to Schneizal, he's good. Thundercracker tried to analyze the match himself. This game is practically a fight between these two. I can't honestly tell who's going to win. Onslaught looked rather intrigued. It was a stubborn match between the last Prime and former Britannian Prince. One by one, most of their pieces had been removed, save for each of their kings, and a couple of pawns. At the moment, Optimus King was separated from Schneizal's king by a single space. So, it would seem neither of us can advance any further. Optimus noted. We'll get into a threefold repetition at this rate. Schneizal muttered. Perhaps we shall call it a draw. Optimus requested. I think not. Schneizal said. You would do well not to underestimate the White King, my friend. King to h5. Checkmate. Wait, if Prime moves his king forward. Kanan stuttered. He'll capture Schneizal's king. Starscream finished. Hey, can you even do that? Onslaught asked Thundercracker. I don't know much about chess, but can you purposely set your own king up for check? Technically, that move is considered illegal in the game. The Blue Seeker replied. But I have a feeling there's more to it than that. Optimus honestly did not see that move coming. Was Schneizal deliberately losing the game? Was this a test of sorts? It seems he had underestimated Schneizal. Though he is no warrior, it seems Schneizal was unpredictable in his own way. However, he didn't need to win. The hologram of Optimus merely glanced forward toward Geass, who appeared to be running her hand down her hair to straighten it out, sending a message his way. Geass has received the message. So, the next move for this game won't matter. The true match has already begun. Initiate self-destruct. With that command, the drone burst into flames and fell to the ground as the holograms shorted out. Schneizal stood up and stepped back in surprise as everyone else, human and Decepticon, looked in shock. So, does that mean he forfeits? Onslaught asked. Seemed a little too easy. And with the drone destroyed, we can't retrace it back to its source. Thundercracker stated. That coward, Prime. Starscream growled as he began to relay instructions to his troops. Fan out. Search the entire perimeter. Belay that order. Schneizal countered as he straightened himself up, speaking calmly. I have a feeling Optimus had already achieved what he needed to. We'll continue with the wedding as planned, no need to waste any time or resources chasing a trail that has already become cold. Starscream growled but realized that Schneizal had a point. Of course. Despite the chess game coming to an end, a smile formed on the former prince's face. That game was honestly the most fun I've had in years. It's been a while since anyone's challenged me like that. I can see why Lelouch looks up to him. Of course, we both know this match was only the beginning. The real game will likely begin tomorrow. Well, Optimus Prime, it's your move. I've got the message. Shink received the code from Sayoko and began to relay it to his fellow conspirators. Secure the Empress tomorrow at the ceremony. An Autobot will meet you in the city should the Empress be placed in danger. Once she is secure, I will meet you on the city's outskirts and I ask that you follow my lead. Till all are one. That's it. Nothing else. Joe asked. Shink, are you certain you're not putting too much faith in this alien? Hong Ji-yu also asked. We're putting not only the future of our entire country in his hands, but even the life of the Empress. It's a gamble, but we all would have made a move to rescue her even if the Autobots and Black Knights were not involved. Shink told them. It's a risk that we have to take. Let's just hope it's the right one. The next day. It was the day of the official wedding ceremony. Like the party the previous night, the ceremony was held outside as multiple seats had been set up for the former Britannian nobility and that of the Chinese Federation who support the High Eunuchs. Starscream stood close to the ceremony as Schneizal stood on stage with Tianzi, clad in a white wedding dress. However, just before the ceremony could begin, multiple explosions erupted from outside the Vermilion City, just in front of the main gate. Thundercracker, Slipstream, Combaticons. Starscream ordered over the comms. Investigate immediately. We're already on the ground. Thundercracker replied as he, Slipstream, and the Combaticons were engaged in a firefight with their enemy. It's the Autobots and the Black Knights, and it seems they're being aided by rebels from the Chinese Federation. It was true, the 7 Decepticons fired their respective Enegron blasters at the group of rebels led by Ironhide and Warpath, alongside Toto and Ogi in the Zangetsu and Gawain Narian respectively. They were also being assisted by a group of Chinese Federation nightmares, the Gun Rus, 2 of which were piloted by Zhou and Hong Ji-yu. Is it too early for us to object to this marriage? Warpath joked as he transformed into his tank mode and opened fire. Kablam! Starscream growled. All units, get to those gates immediately. Upon his order, the ships circling the Forbidden City flew outward toward the gate as Kanan and the High Eunuchs quickly approached Schneisel and Tianzi. Your Majesty, we need to get you to safety. Kanan told him. Please to see to everyone else's safety first. Schneisel said calmly as most of the wedding guests were already in a panic. But Your Highness, what of our deal? One of the eunuchs questioned. We'll work that out later. Schneisel assured as he gently tried to reach for the frightened Tianzi. My dear, please come with. Suddenly, a kunai was thrown at Schneisel's shoulder, knocking him down as Sayoko suddenly leapt in between Tianzi and all the men present, catching Starscream's attention as well. You will not lay another finger on this child. Sayoko declared as Kagaya was quickly came to Tianzi's side as well. Schneisel, Kanan was by his downed master's side. Do not worry, bulletproof vests and all. Schneisel assured as he was already on his feet, revealing the armored vest underneath his white robe. Treachery. Starscream aimed his Energon blaster at the 3 females, only for his attention to be drawn to a large explosion from a nearby building as a blue and gold Chinese nightmare emerged from the smoke and hovered in the air. We ask this question, the pilot inside the Shenhu declared. By the voice of heaven, the roar of the land, and the hearts of the people. How does this marriage represent the will of the Chinese Federation? Shink, have you lost your mind? One of the High Eunuchs questioned. Clearly, he is a sympathizer of the enemy. Starscream was ready to open fire on him, only for the Shenhu to fire a pair of electric/harkins from its wrist at Starscream, the force of the impact sending him crashing across the ground. Already the High Eunuchs, along with Schneisel, and Kanan were being escorted away by their guards, but still maintained a relatively close distance to see what was happening as the Shenhu flew toward Tianzi, Kagaya, and Sayoko. It doesn't matter if she doesn't remember our promise. Shink thought to himself. I made an everlasting promise to Her Majesty in return for sparing my life. A vow I swore on my heart. I must save her. I will take her to the outside world. However, before he could get any closer, the Shenhu was blasted back by an Energon blast. As Shink recovered, he heard Tianzi's screams as he looked in horror to see the frightened girl in the metallic grasp of Starscream. Your Majesty! Kagaya exclaimed as Sayoko pulled her closer to the Shenhu. Starscream smirked evilly as he aimed his Energon blaster right at the girl in his grip. One step, and your precious Empress is scrap. You filthy coward! Shink shouted. Release her at once. Or you'll what? Shoot. And endanger this child. Starscream sneered. How pathetic, even if you aren't truly aligned with them, you share the same sentiments as the Autobots and their Black Knight pets. All the power you can imagine, and yet you value the lives of these weaklings above all else. Shink clenched the controls on his nightmare, wanting nothing more than to end Starscream's life right here and now. But he couldn't do anything without risking her life. What should he do? What should he do? Shink. He gasped in shock as the teary-eyed Tianzi held up her pinky finger. Shink, 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 shink. Despite being held at gunpoint in the literal hands of a giant, she had absolute faith in the young man she had grown so fondly of. She remembers, she remembers. His vow remembered and reciprocated, his strength and will renewed. I'll save her. In my heart, there is no more doubt. The Shenhu aimed its weapons at Starscream. Shut up, you wretched brat. Starscream shook Tianzi in his hands but gave a yelp as he saw the Shenhu reading its weapons. I'm warning you, not a step forward. Is that any way to treat a little lady? The Seeker leader turned around in shock to see a metallic fist impacting his face, knocking him down and releasing Tianzi from his grip. Fortunately, the girl was caught in the gentler gasp of the female Arielbot, Windblade. Don't worry kid, I gotcha. She assured with a smile, offering her other hand to Kagaya and Sayoko as they climbed on. Thank you, Windblade. Kagaya nodded with a slight giggle. How did Starscream not even notice you? He was busy monologuing. Self-absorbent guys like him always get distracted by themselves. Windblade joked as she transformed into her jet mode, safely putting all three in her cockpit. Time to go, she told Shink. Right, thank you, Shink said as the Shenhu followed Windblade's jet mode out of the city. Ironhide, we got the Empress. Meet us at the rendezvous point. Windblade communicated. Acknowledged. Ironhide communicated back as he and his team were pinned behind the rocks for cover as the Seekers, Combaticons, and their troopers shot at them. The kid's out. Time to go. Got it. Ogi replied as he pressed a trigger, detonating several pre-placed bombs around the entire perimeter of the Forbidden City, not only shaking up the entire area, but also creating a large smokescreen that enabled the Ironhide and Warpath to transform and drive away with the Zangetsu and Gawain Narian right behind them, along with their small army of Gunroos. By the time the smoke cleared, the Decepticons looked around to see their enemy escaped. They got away. Vortex cursed. Search the area. They couldn't have gotten far. Onslaught ordered as Slipstream contacted their leaders. Starscream, Schneisel, what in the Allspark happened? Back inside the city, Starscream pulled himself up with a growl. Several Chinese Federation soldiers launched a coup. They have fled with the Empress. Have all our forces level the entire perimeter. Smoke them out. Belay that order. Schneisel approached, speaking calmly over the communications channel. They won't get far. How can you be so certain? One of the eunuchs questioned as they and Kanan approached him. How could they even get into the city? That anti-ground bridge device should have prevented them from entering. The most overweight eunuch stated. The device has a limited range. Schneisel explained. More than likely, the Autobots and Black Knights were able to ground bridge as close as they could get and simply used their transportations to close the distance. They likely even have their own temporary base set up nearby. They'll take the young Empress there to see she is secure before returning to their main base. And how would we find said base? Starscream questioned. Because Tianzi will lead us right to it. Schneisel reached into his robe to pull out a small handheld GPS-like device. I had a feeling that K-Gaia was involved with the enemy, given her family's history, but more importantly, I've noticed Shinki's loyalty is toward his Empress over all else. So, I placed a small tracking device on my young bride to be before the ceremony. You anticipated the enemy would attack and planned accordingly. Kanan smiled, not surprised in the least. Starscream chuckled. Oh, that is quite devious. I love it. Meanwhile, Windblade's jet mode flew alongside the Zangetsu, Gawain Narian, and Shenhu, with Ironhide and Warpath's own vehicle modes driving down the path below with their own Chinese Federation allies right behind them in their Gunroos. Is the Empress safe? Joe asked. Yeah, got her here with K-Gaia and Sayoko. Windblade replied. Now comes the hard part. Ogi said. But first we have to get to the rendezvous and quickly. It doesn't matter how fast we go. Toto commented. They won't attack until we meet up with Optimus and the others. Are you certain they're tracking us? Hong Ji-Yu asked. Based on what we've heard about Schneisel, I wouldn't doubt it. Ironhide said. Pretty easy to see who's really running this operation. Yeah, if Starscream were in charge, he'd burn down the entire Chinese Federation by now. Warpath commented. But given that display we gave him back there, I wouldn't be surprised if he were a little on edge. K-Gaia commented. A little? Windblade questioned with a chuckle. That guy has a spaz attack every time things don't go his way, which is pretty much all the time. Makes me wonder how someone like him maintains such a high-ranking position in the Decepticon army. Shink said. Probably just a punching bag for Megatron. Ogi joked, resulting in Warpath laughing. Starscream's no Megatron, but he's far from predictable. We all know not to underestimate him by now. Ironhide said seriously, so let's keep moving. Roger. All the soldiers said as they proceeded down the path. While everyone appeared to maintain a cool demeanor, Tianzi looked more than a little tense, and nobody could blame her given all that just happened in a few seconds from an arranged and forced marriage literally exploding, to being taken hostage by a giant alien robot, and being rescued by other giant alien robots. It was simply too much for the young girl as she held her sides somewhat tensely. Your Majesty, it's okay. K-Gaia assured as she gently placed her hands on Tianzi's shoulders. I know they might look scary, but don't you worry. The Autobots are nothing like the Decepticons. We promise that you're safe. Sayoko added. Nobody is going to hurt you. Though Tianzi did know to trust Kagaya, and she could see that if Shink was working with them, the Autobots and Black Knights couldn't all be that bad. But it was still somewhat nerve-wracking. Hey, I heard you spent your entire life in that forbidden city and haven't even left it, right? Windblade asked. Why yes. Well, now you are. Just look outside, Windblade said. Tianzi happened to glance out the cockpit, and gave a gasp of awe as she saw the landscape around her. I'm really outside the city. Outside the palace. Yep, Windblade confirmed. Sorry your dream had to come true under these extreme circumstances. Kagaya said. But look at it this way, now you've got a whole new world to explore. And tell you what, kid. Once this whole mess here is taken care of, I'll fly you across the skies so you can get a good view of the world. Windblade said. Really? You mean it? Tianzi asked in amazement. Promise. Windblade assured. Assuming your bodyguard is okay with it. So long as the Empress allows it, I'll follow her to the ends of this world and beyond. Shink said, communicating from his nightmare, his face appearing on the screen of Windblade's cockpit for Tianzi to see. Shink, you kept your promise, tears of joy were already in her eyes. I'm so happy, thank you. Don't thank me yet, Your Majesty. This battle is far from over. Shink told her. It wasn't much longer before the group made it to the rendezvous point. It was a man-made structure built into the base of a mountain. This was the mausoleum of the 88 Emperors. Optimus Prime stood alongside a gathering of Black Knight nightmares as he saw Ironhide's team arrive on the scene. The Autobots all transformed as they, the Zangetsu, the Gawain Narian, the Shenhu, and all the Gun-Rus allied with them met up. Mission success, Optimus. Ogi reported. Good. Optimus nodded as he glanced toward Windblade who helped gently set Tianzi on the ground with Kagaya and Sayoko. The young Empress couldn't help but gasp as she looked up at the Autobot leader for the first time. Though she saw his hologram the previous night, it didn't compare to the real thing standing before her. Yet, despite his imposing figure, he bore a kind and gentle smile. Hello Your Majesty. I am pleased you are alright. Optimus said. Why you're Optimus Prime, even though he was physically imposing, the way he was speaking to her in such a gentle tone, and the look in his fierce yet caring eyes told her that he was a warrior with a strong and noble heart. Despite being different eyes entirely, they carried the same spark as Shink. The spark that said they would always do the right thing and would not let anyone else tell them otherwise. That look is what endeared her to Shink in her toddler years, and now it endeared her to Optimus. She couldn't help but smile in his presence. Kagaya, Sayoko, please escort the young Empress inside and to safety. Optimus requested. Of course. Come along, Your Majesty. Sayoko gestured to her. But, it's alright. Shink stood up from the cockpit of the Shenhu and gave the small girl a smile. Go on Your Highness, we'll handle everything out here. She nodded back as Kagaya and Sayoko led her into the mausoleum. I have to admit, I never expected this place where we would take our stand. The mausoleum of the 88 Emperors. Joe said. Our nation's greatest emperors were buried here. It holds great symbolic value. I doubt the Decepticons will care when they attack. Windblade said. They'll probably level the whole mountain to bury us with it. You might be right about that. Because here they come, Ogi stated, picking up multiple enemy signals from his nightmare. They all looked forward to see a whole army approaching them. The two previous Decepticon ships were in the air alongside the Avalon, operated by Schnizel's crew, with Starscream, Thundercracker, and Slipstream's jet modes present as well. And below was a massive Chinese Federation mobile fortress shaped like a pyramid called the Longdan, under the command of the High Eunuchs. All around the massive fortress was a small army of Gun-Rus piloted by the soldiers loyal to the High Eunuchs, along with several Viacon ground troopers being led by the Combaticons. That's a lot of bad guys. Warpath noted. Here's hoping it all goes according to plan. Ironhide added. The fate of an entire nation filled with millions of people hangs on the balance. Optimus declared as he drew his ion blasters. Autobots, Black Knights, stand your ground. With that declaration, all the present Autobots and Nightmares armed themselves and prepared for the siege to come. As Starscream's jet mode hovered close to the Avalon, he contacted Schnizel as well as the High Eunuchs. Well, it seems the enemy is making a valiant last stand. The Seeker commander noted. It seems rather odd to have such a minimal force protecting their base. Schneisel noted. We do know that they are also operating in the EU, hoping to get that superpower on their side. Kanan voiced his opinion. Perhaps their numbers are simply stretched too thin. Perhaps. Schneisel began to think. It seems a little too early to declare a last stand, just what are they planning? Well, it doesn't matter. One of the high eunuchs declared from their mobile base. We can just kill them and the Empress and make it look like the Autobots and the Black Knights were responsible. And make her a martyr of the pathetic people to rally behind us. Starscream said with a sneer. Then let us begin. All units, commence attack. Open fire. With that, all land and air-based armaments from the Decepticon and Eunuch forces fired onto the mausoleum. However, all projectiles exploded before they even made contact with the mountain. The result was a massive energon shield that appeared to be projected from something inside the mountain that they couldn't see. A shield generator, Schneisel observed. Now that makes more sense. Even if they cannot win, they at least have a fallback. That is the very same generator they used to defend their precious Ark, a weapon of our creation. Starscream growled. Then we'll take a more direct approach. Upon his declaration, Starscream, Thundercracker, and Slipstream flew forward with a large group of Seeker Viacons right behind them with the two Decepticon ships as well. On the ground, the High Eunuch's forces, and the Viacons that transformed into cars and tanks, all pushed forward with the Combaticons leading the charge. However, the 5 vehicle modes of the Combaticons quickly came close together as Brawl and Swindle transformed into a pair of legs, with Onslaught leaping to connect to the legs as well as Vortex and Blast off to form a pair of arms and merge into a familiar combiner. Ah yeah, Bruticus is in the house. The Combaticon combiner stated as he charged forward. The siege had begun as all the Black Knight nightmares, along with the gun Russ from Shinki's faction, returned fire from the base of the mausoleum. Even a few Akatsukis appeared on the sides of the mountain to fire upon the aerial forces that were incoming toward them. Several explosions lit up the whole area. On the ground, Warpath and OG's Gawain Narian had transformed into their respective tank modes and laid down the heavy artillery to take out some of the frontmost enemy units that came their way, but this barely slowed the enemy's advance as several Viacons entered the perimeter and transformed to return fire with their Energon blasters, prompting Warpath to do the same and engage in hand-to-hand combat with the enemy. Ironhide joined Optimus in concentrating their firepower on the incoming Bruticus, who brought up his helicopter blade shield on his left arm to cover himself. However, this appeared to leave him vulnerable for Shinki's Shenhu to come in and open fire with its Baryon cannon built into its chest. This did manage to score a hit onto Bruticus' side, knocking him back, but the Combaticon combiner pulled himself up with little issue. Ha, that tickled. Bruticus waved off the smoke from his side, revealing there was barely any damage. Somehow, I knew it wouldn't be too easy. Shink thought as his Shenhu drew its retractable short sword and flew in to slice at Bruticus' face, but he brought up his right arm to unleash a flamethrower attack, quickly forcing Shink to draw his Nightmare's electric/Harkins, which he spun around like a makeshift shield to block the intense heat, but the force from the attack was enough to send the Shenhu back quite a distance. Optimus quickly rushed Bruticus from below, drawing one of his blades to slice at his right knee as Ironhide fired both his Energon cannons into Bruticus' left knee, bringing Bruticus down. But he was far from done as he lifted both his arms and slammed them on the ground to unleash a powerful sonic painwave attack. This sent both Optimus and Ironhide flying as they landed hard on the ground with sufficient force to create a pair of large craters on impact. Yeah, gonna feel that in the morning. Ironhide groaned. In the air, Windblade's jet mode flew alongside Toto's Zangetsu as the later spun her vehicle mode in a barrel roll formation, while also firing several missiles and machine guns to take down several incoming Seekers while Toto pressed the advantage, the Zangetsu drawing a sword to slice and cut one Seeker Viacon in half before firing his missile tube launchers to destroy several more. However, the Zangetsu was quickly blasted in the side by an enemy's own missile attack, causing Toto to grunt from shock as he tried to steady his Black Nightmare while Windblade flew in to cover him. "You okay in there?" she asked as she transformed into her Cybertronian mode and hovered in the air alongside the Black Nightmare. "I'll live," Toto replied as he straightened out his Zangetsu. "But not for long, I'm pleased to say." Starscream said as he hovered in the air in his own Cybertronian mode as well with Thundercracker and Slipstream by his side. Kyorshiro Todo, we meet once again. You'll have to be more specific. Todo replied. All you Decepticons look alike to me. Aw snap. Windblade mused internally. She was certain Todo knew who Starscream was, but only acted oblivious to egg him on. Welcome to the Mock Starscream Club, Todo. Starscream's form shook with rage. Destroy him. He. Thundercracker and Slipstream fired their energon blasters at the Zangetsu, which quickly deployed its radiant wave shielding unit to block the initial blasts before flying forward, spinning around while firing its slash Harkins to knock back Thundercracker and Slipstream, followed by a quick sword strike to Starscream, the force knocking him back before flying to press the advantage, but Todo was quick to draw his Nightmare's katana to block the blade strike from Thundercracker who flew at him in retaliation. Windblade meanwhile had transformed into her jet mode to fly and gained some distance from Slipstream in her own jet mode, who fired her energon blasters at her, even as Windblade flew straight up towards the clouds. However, once they were high enough, Windblade transformed and drew her swords as she fell towards Slipstream, landing on her jet mode as the female seeker tried to shake her off. Windblade tried to bring down one of her swords onto Slipstream, only for her to transform and shake Windblade off, the two grappling with each other as they fell closer toward the ground, but Slipstream was able to kick Windblade off before transforming and flying away with Windblade doing the same to give pursuit. Despite appearing to make such a valiant last stand, the long-distance weapons from the Avalon, the Decepticon vessels, as well as the Longdon, made it difficult for the Autobots, Black Knights, and their allies to press the advantage. Not to mention the sheer numbers from the enemy's infantry forces outnumbered them almost 10-1. It didn't seem like victory was a possibility for the heroes, which is why the High Eunuchs weren't surprised to receive a call from the masked man named Wizard, whose face appeared on the screen of the Longdon's control room. Not quite the masked man we'd hoped to be meeting. The overweight High Eunuch noted. So, Wizard, you speak for the rest of your forces when you admit you're outmatched. Well, we won't accept your surrender. It's too late now. So, you insist on continuing this battle, even if your own Empress will die in the attack? Wizard questioned. The Empress is merely a system. There are plenty of others to replace her. The overweight High Eunuch replied. So, you can't use her as a bargaining chip. The shortest one added. But you attempted to sell her to the former Britannian Prince Schneisel to gain favor with the Decepticons. Wizard stated. Of course, we did. Another High Eunuch added. The Decepticons are clearly the most powerful force on this planet, it only made sense to join the winning side. And what about the land of the Chinese Federation? You're selling that to the Decepticons, as well? Wizard continued to question. Land is nothing but dirt, after all. Correct. Once this battle is concluded and the Empress dead, we'll be honorary Decepticons. And what of the people you swore to protect? Millions of innocent men, women, and children. Tell me, Mr. Wizard, when you walk down the street, do you worry about stepping on the ants? You throw away paper that clings to your bottom, don't you? It's the same thing. And what of young Tianzi's parents? The former emperor and empress that you swore to serve. You would betray their memory. Oh, you naive fool, have you realized? It wasn't an accident that claimed their lives. You killed them. You killed your own emperor and empress, now you're about to kill their only child. Sell off their land and people. All for power. Oh, an idealist. I wasn't aware your ranks had any. There's no room for such foolish things in this world. Indeed, masters and commoners will always breed. Like insects. A eunuch said as they all laughed maniacally. Bruticus swung his arm toward the Shenhu with enough force to knock it out of the air and send it skidding across the ground, close the opening of the mausoleum, which caused the young empress to gasp in horror. Shink. She ran from her spot back outside, even as Kagaya and Sayoko tried to stop her. Your Majesty. Kagaya ran after her as Sayoko leapt and flipped above Tianzi and landed in front of her to grab and keep her from getting any further. You can't go out there. It's too dangerous. Sayoko told her. Please. You have to stop this. Shink. Shink. He heard his name being called as his barely functional nightmare screens zoomed in on the struggling girl as Sayoko and Kagaya pulled her back. Your Highness, don't come any closer. Shink stated as he tried to pull the Shenhu up, with Bruticus looming closer. Even with Optimus and Ironhide firing more energon blasts at him, Bruticus delivered another sonic painwave attack, which they both barely avoided as they transformed to move away, but the shockwave still knocked them back quite a distance. Already the Combaticon Combiner loomed well over the Blue Nightmare, much to Tianzi's horror. Like a bug, Bruticus lifted his left foot, ready to stomp and crush the Shenhu and its glaring pilot inside. No! Shink! Tianzi's cries were heard, even as something massive exploded out from the side of the mountain above Bruticus. He looked up in surprise to see a large mass falling down to land on top of his chest, kicking him down and knocking him flat on his back before the mass landed in between the downed Bruticus and the Shenhu. Shink gasped in shock, with Tianzi looking in absolute awe with shaky eyes, while Kagaya and Sayoko shared knowing smiles. The recovering Optimus and Ironhide also saw who had just arrived onto the battlefield and knew instantly that the charade of losing this battle was over. "Hey, big guy, pick on someone your own size," Grimlock declared to the downed Bruticus. Just as Grimlock appeared, two large explosions erupted from the western and eastern sides of the mountain, halting all the battles as every human and Cybertronian turned to see the sudden appearance of Autobot and Black Knight reinforcements, having been in hiding underground and waiting for the right moment to strike. "So, we're done waiting around, right?" Wheeljack said as he drew his dual swords, standing alongside Hotshot, Chromia, Drift, and Zdean's Gekka Shiden on the west side of the mountain, with a small army of Wrecker Actisuchus right behind them, and Tamaki's personal unit at the lead. On the east side stood the Galician Conquista, piloted by Nonette, the custom Vincent piloted by Cornelia, with Guilford's Akatsuki right by her side, and another small army of Black Knight Akatsukis behind them, alongside the command model Akatsukis piloted by the Four Holy Swords. "Yes, I believe the time to strike is now," Cornelia smirked. And they weren't the only ones making a surprise appearance. Emerging from the opening of the mausoleum, passing over Tianzi, Kagaya, and Sayoko as they moved back, and now floating up and above Grimlock was the aerial carrier known as the Ikaraga. Standing on its deck were Silverbolt and Air Raid, with Wizard's Own Agravain in the middle of the two aerial bots. On the bridge of the vessel appeared to be Chigusa in command with Diathard at the controls next to her, with several young female Black Knight operators, and even Rakshata sitting casually on a sofa. "Ah yeah, now it's a party," Warpath said as he and OG's Gawain Narian stood closer together. "Hey Starscream, look who's here," he called up to the head seeker, pointing towards the massive Autobot that was known as Grimlock. The second Starscream saw him, his face paled, instantly being reminded of the beatdown the Dinobot gave him after trying to persuade him over to his side. We have to get out of here." He accessed his comms out of pure fear. All units, prepare to retreat. Reinforcements. Now, one of the high eunuchs exclaimed. "But we had them. How could they have mobilized a counterattack so quickly?" Another eunuch questioned as they received an immediate and sudden alert on their radio, which one of their soldiers intercepted. "Emergency alert. Riots have broken out in Shanghai. Street riots. They're rioting. In Shanghai. It's not just Shanghai. Beijing, Burma, Islamabad, and there are 14 other areas that we're still confirming. People are rising up everywhere." Even Schneisel was receiving the same reports from the bridge of the Avalon, seeing footage of people rioting against the military forces and government in the aforementioned cities and areas all across the Chinese Federation. These riots occurred just as the enemy's reinforcements arrived. "Hardly a coincidence," Schneisel commented. "My lord, we've intercepted a communication between the High Eunuchs and Black Knights," Kanan reported. "It seems it's been broadcasted all across the country." "Patch it through," Schneisel ordered. The screen in at the front of the bridge played the recorded broadcast of the conversation between the eunuchs and Wizard. "The Empress is merely a system. There are plenty of others to replace her. And what of young Tianzi's parents? The former Emperor and Empress that you swore to serve. You would betray their memory. Oh, you naive fool, have you realized? It wasn't an accident that claimed their lives. You killed them. You killed your own Emperor and Empress, now you're about to kill their only child. Sell off their land and people. All for power. Oh, an idealist. I wasn't aware your ranks had any. There's no room for such foolish things in this world. Indeed, masters and commoners will always breed. Like insects. I see, this was their plan all along." Schneisel seemed to figure out. Not only to save the Empress, but to paint the High Eunuchs and our own forces as the villains. Optimus, it worked. Chigusa contacted the Prime. The whole nation heard the eunuch's confession. The starving masses of the land have risen up against their oppressors. Diethard added. Excellent. Now is the time to push forward. Autobots, Black Knights, attack. Optimus ordered as all their forces, including Grimlock, and the Ikaruga, went on the attack against the surprised and unprepared enemy forces. Hell yeah. Time to get this party started. Tamaki shouted as he decided to turn on his own personal radio, playing Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. Grimlock transformed into his Tyrannosaurus Rex mode as Bruticus recovered. Before the Combiner had the chance to go on the attack, Grimlock charged with a roar, slamming his head into Bruticus' chest to push him back quite a distance as all the ground and air units flew around them to engage the enemy. Bruticus managed to dig his feet in the ground and halt Grimlock's advance before grabbing him by the face, but the Dinobot was strong enough to try and shake Bruticus' grip, putting up quite a fight even for Bruticus. Optimus used this to jump and run up Grimlock's back, drawing his Energon axe before leaping up high to drive his axe into the shoulder-neck area of Bruticus, causing him to holler in pain and let go of Grimlock, who took advantage of his freedom to swipe his tail at Bruticus' chest as Optimus leapt down to the ground to swipe his axe into the back of Bruticus' right knee, bringing him down as Grimlock unleashed his fire breath at him, forcing Bruticus to shield himself with his helicopter blades. But this left him open for Ironhide to pelt him on the right side with his Energon cannons, and for Shinki's Shenhu to do the same with his Central Baryon cannon. The Ikaruga was already in the air and opening fire with its missiles, machine guns, taking down several Seeker Viacons before it aimed and fired its main Hadron heavy artillery cannons from its front, scoring a direct hit on one of the Decepticon vessels, breaking through its shield and causing it to explode. The second Decepticon vessel attempted to shoot down the Ikaruga with its own missiles, only for them to explode on an Energon barrier being projected around the Ikaruga. That Decepticon shield generator we recovered has certainly come in handy. We've already made several smaller versions for our other ships besides the Ark. Rakshata commented with a trolling grin. That should teach those sloppy Decepticons not to go leaving their toys around. Silverbolt and Air Raid launched an assault with several flying Akatsukis on the remaining Decepticon vessels, firing missiles, energon blasts, and machine guns on the ship's shields. The concentrated attack seemed enough to almost break through as the Agravain hovered over it. Maybe next time you'll think twice before selling off a child and billions of innocent people. Wizard said as he opened fire with his Nightmare's Hadron cannons on the cracked points in the shield, finally breaking through and allowing all the flying units to open fire with everything they had and bringing it down in a heap of fire and metal. From the west side, Chromia used her sniper rifle with pinpoint accuracy to take out the guns of the enemy Nightmares close by, allowing Wheeljack, Hotshot, and Drift to drive in their vehicle modes and ram down several enemies before transforming. Wheeljack and Drift drew their respective blades to cut down the Decepticons and gun rust that attempted to surround them, while Zedine's Gekka joined in the fun with its own swords as well as Drift deployed Jetstorm and Safeguard with Hotshot relying on his fists and Energon blasters. Tamaki and his army of Wrecker Akatsukis also provided covering fire with a barrage of missiles to blow away a chunk of the enemy forces. On the east side, Cornelia and her forces charged forward with her and Guilford joining the four holy swords in carving a path through the enemy with their Nightmare's respective bladed weapons. Nonet's Galician Conquista flew in the air as it drew its Varus rifle to open fire on the ground around them, lighting up the area with explosions. The time has come for us to take the offensive. Let's not waste it, Nonet declared. We're not trapped here, Toto stated, his Zangetsu slicing its sword at Thundercracker, who tried to block it, only to be left open for a sudden spinning kick from the Zangetsu to knock him down as Windblade flew straight towards Slipstream before transforming to land a powerful kick on the female Seeker's vehicle mode and send her rolling out of the air and crashing onto the ground. Kablam! 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 Warpath exclaimed in his tank mode as he and OG's Gawain Narian fired onto Bruticus' back, forcing him to turn around and allow Grimlock, still in his T-Rex mode, to rush underneath him at his legs and push through them, actually flipping the massive Decepticon Combiner over the Dinobot and knock him face down on the ground. Focus your firepower on the big guy, Ogi ordered. Get him while he's down. Just as he, Warpath, Optimus, Ironhide, Shink, Grimlock, and all other available units, including Zhou and Hong Ji-yu, were about to gain up on the downed Bruticus, he suddenly broke apart into the 5 Combaticons that made up his form. Combaticons. Retreat now. Onslaught ordered as he, Brawl, and Swindle drove away in their vehicle modes, with Vortex and Blast off flying above them, trying to get away as far as possible. Starscream's jet mode flew toward the Avalon before transforming and landing on its hull. Schneisel, this battle is a loss. We must retreat. He's right, my lord. Most of our forces have been obliterated. Kanan urged. Very well, we're withdrawing. Schneisel admitted with reluctance. What of the high eunuchs? Shall we extract them? Kanan asked. No, leave them. Schneisel ordered. They've lost the support of their people, they cannot offer us anything else. Leave them to their fate. That chess match in the beginning was likely a way for him to analyze my tactics, or to pass on a signal to his agents in our midst. He suspected that we'd have a way to trace Tianzi and prepared an ambush. He even anticipated the eunuchs, overconfidence, and turned it to his advantage, exposing our intent to the people. Once the people of this nation rebelled, he unleashed his forces to overwhelm ours, saving the Empress and likely gaining support of the entire Chinese Federation. An impressed smirk fell on Schneisel's face. Well played, Optimus Prime. Well played. A large space bridge vortex opened up to allow the Avalon and Starscream to enter, followed by Thundercracker and Slipstream, along with Blastoff and Vortex, with the surviving Seeker Viacons right behind them. At the same time, a smaller space bridge portal appeared on the ground that allowed Onslaught, Brawl, and Swindle to retreat as well with the remaining ground-based Viacons. In a matter of seconds, the Decepticon forces had retreated, and the battle won, resulting in victorious roars and cheers from all the Autobots and Black Knights on the battlefield. The High Eunuchs screamed as a large glowing broadsword sliced through the roof and outer wall of the Longdon, with the opening being savagely torn open to reveal Grimlock, back in his natural Cybertronian mode, as he glared with glowing red optics at the band of cowards below him. So, you're the worms that attempted to sell out your own people, and even try to kill a child. Grimlock snarled. I've never seen a more pathetic bunch of lifeforms. Please. We'll give you anything you want. Just don't kill us. Please. The fat High Eunuch begged. That pleasure belongs to someone else. Grimlock growled as he stepped aside and allowed the Shenhu to enter. Your Decepticon allies have abandoned you. So, tell me, how does it feel to be helpless? Shink exclaimed as he stepped up from his nightmare's cockpit with a sword in hand. To know that your lives are no longer yours. Now you know how Her Majesty feels, along with millions of people you attempted to sell out. He didn't even give the eunuchs a chance to beg as he leapt from the nightmare, cutting down the fat eunuch first before moving on to the others. They all screamed in fear and agony as they were swiftly cut down, their blood sprayed across the floor and walls. Even as their soldiers and guards tried to defend them, Shink was quick to slice and kill them as well. In less than a minute, all the High Eunuchs were dead. Feel good? Grimlock asked. Shink turned around with a satisfied smile. You have no idea. As the Autobots and Black Knights continued to celebrate, Tianzi slowly stepped outside to look at the battlefield around her. Even though there was destruction everywhere, all the people looked nothing short of happy and excited, even the giant alien robots. And the way the people and aliens interacted with one another, like close friends, even if they were from two completely different species. It was something that amazed her. She gave a small gasp as Optimus Prime slowly approached her, and kneeled down closer to her level to look at her with concern. Your Majesty, are you alright? Why yes, Tianzi nodded. What about Shink? He is fine, I assure you. As are his cohorts. Optimus replied before giving an assuring smile. The High Eunuch and the Decepticons can no longer use or harm you. I promise, you're in safe hands. The way Optimus looked at her, though his eyes were different than any other person's, she was once again reminded of the kind and gentle look that Shink would give her. Once again, she felt herself endeared by his very presence. Even though they had only just met, she believed him with all her heart when he said that she was safe. She felt tears of joy form in her eyes as she sank to her knees and cried in her hands as Kagaya came to her and put her hands on her shoulders, giving a gentle smile. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tianzi cried in joy as Kagaya consoled her with Sayoko at her side as well. K-Gaia looked up toward Optimus with a smile and a nod, which he returned as he stood up fully. That was pretty crazy, Ogi said as he walked up by Optimus' side and looked toward the Autobot leader with a smile. Gotta admit, that whole plan of yours, kinda felt like something Lelouch would do. Never expected it would come from you. All we did was reveal the truth. Optimus said. The people deserve to know. Yeah, and it won't be easy for the Chinese Federation, will it? Ogi asked somewhat rhetorically, but Optimus responded anyway. No. There may still be cells loyal to the eunuchs, and the people may have a difficult time adjusting to this change, but this country now has a chance for a brighter future. I'm certain now that it is in good hands. Optimus said as he looked not only toward Tianzi, but even Shink as he approached her from his nightmare. The young empress didn't hesitate to run up toward him with a hug as she cried into his chest. Even Ogi couldn't help but smile. Yeah, they're definitely in good hands now. A united front facing the dark horizon. Lelouch couldn't help but get a strong sense of déjà vu as he stood in his Zero attire on a hovering platform that put him on equal level with Optimus Prime, and both faced the army that consisted of the Black Knight and Autobot Alliance. Though there wasn't that much change on the Autobot side of things, save for the Dinobot that choose not to attend this meeting, the vast numbers of Black Knights have swelled significantly. All the old soldiers and his friends that he had made when he first started the rebellion in Area 11 were practically eclipsed by the many new recruits. People from all over the world were joining in, not just Japanese or even Britannian, but they had many allies from Europea and the Chinese Federation as well. There were some more notable recruits to their forces as well, including Layla's entire WZERO unit, Maribel and the Glinda Knights with the remainder of the Asura force, even Jinro from Shin's forces who defected. Shink also stood present with his allies from the Chinese Federation. Lelouch couldn't help the surge of pride that flowed in his body. Now then, Zero began, getting the attention of everyone present. With the vast new recruits that have joined our ranks, a re-establishment of our organization structure is underway. A holographic projection of the Black Knight Autobot Alliance organization structure was presented for all to see. To keep it simple terms, groups such as the Zero Squad, the Elite Guard, and the Wreckers remain unchanged. However, several groups will be receiving new members starting now. Optimus spoke up. Intelligence, espionage, and public relation matters will be joined by Klaus Warwick. Well, if you say so. Klaus said somewhere within the crowd with a slight smile. Military affairs will be joined by Oscar Hamill, Sarah Danes, and Olivia Rule. Optimus continued. Research and development, Anna Clement, Sophie Randall, Chloe Winkle, Hilda Fagan, Joe Wise, Farilli Baltro, and Kate Novak. So, we'll be working more closely with Cybertronian technology then, Anna said, sharing a glance with Sophie and Joe. Seems that way. Joe nodded while Sophie simply smiled. Li Shink and his forces shall be joining the Black Dragon unit, with Shink acting as deputy commander alongside Kyoshiro Toto. Optimus revealed. Very well, seems acceptable. Shink nodded, glancing to his subordinates, who accepted the decision as well. In addition, we have now established the creation of 2 new units within our organization. Zero spoke up. The first one will be titled the Black Wyverns, led by Layla Breisgau, with Akito Hyuga as second in command. This unit will consist of Ryo Sayama, Ayano Kasaka, Yukiya Naruse, and Gino Weinberg. Black Wyverns, huh? Yukiya questioned with a smirk and a raised eyebrow. That's an original name, Ryo said with a sarcastic tone and a smirk of his own. We've got a Knight of the Round in our ranks. Ayano asked in surprise, but gasped slightly as Gino causally wrapped his arm over her shoulders. Hey, we all worked together in Europea, so I'd say we make a good team already. Gino smiled at all 3 of them, who couldn't help but smile back. My own unit, Layla said, sounding somewhat unsure. You were commander before we even joined the Black Knights and the Autobots, it's only fitting. Akito told her before smiling in her direction. I'll try my best to be a worthy second in command. Layla blushed at not only his praise and faith, but the way Akito told her that he would try to be worthy. In her honest opinion, she already found him more than worthy. The second unit will be christened the Crimson Knights. Zero continued. Their leader is Maribel Mel Britannia, with Ashley Asura as second in command. All members of the former Glinda Knights and Asura Strike Force, along with Jean Rowe, shall make up this unit. The Crimson Knights. Maribel was rather surprised to see her half-brother was so willing to let her lead her own unit. She would have thought he'd be a bit distrustful toward her after everything. But knowing that he trusted her like this was enough to make her smile. Well, looks like we'll be spending more time together, Aldrin. Ashley smirked toward the blonde. And I'm your superior now. Maybe in rank, but not in skill. Aldrin told him. So, you got 3 or 4 more cons than I did. Ashley brushed off. 3 of 4 dozen more. No need to sugarcoat it. Aldrin gave a trolling grin, causing Ashley to pout as he looked away. Everyone else here has been assigned their unit and placement. Optimus spoke up as each new Black Knight recruit took out a small tablet they each were given that showed them their placement in the organization. Get acclimated with your new position, take some time to rest if you can. That is all. Dismissed. A large council chamber consisted of a massive round table with 50 or so people sitting around the table. These people were representatives of the various countries around the world not under the Decepticons' control. Several people were from Europia, including Layla and the still Geass Jean Smillas, Tianzi from the Chinese Federation with Shink right beside her, Duke Valanes of Euro-Britannia, Kagaya and the rest of Kyoto were also present in the meeting, and several other national representatives. I apologize for the delay. Zero's voice announced as he entered the chambers, with a certain someone behind him. That someone caused many of them to gasp in shock. Is that Princess Euphemia? I thought she was dead. Wasn't she responsible for the massacre of the Special Zone in Japan? That is not true, Layla exclaimed, standing up. Euphemia Lee Britannia had nothing to do with that atrocity. I agree. Kagaya stood up as well. We have concrete evidence to prove that it was an imposter who initiated the massacre. But not only that, she has dedicated everything to the cause of freedom the Black Knights and Autobots stand for. She has helped to lead the combined efforts of Euro-Britannia and Europia's forces in driving the Decepticons from the continent before they could destroy us. Valanes also added. That is quite enough. Euphemia raised her hand calmly before stepping forward to address the gathered leaders. I can present any evidence as well as list my actions I have taken since joining this alliance as much as I desire, but none of that will take away the tragedy that befell the Special Zone. I intended to create that as a way to stop the former Britannia Empire's unjust actions of discrimination, and the monster known as Megatron took full advantage of that and used it as a means to overthrow Britannia and take power for himself. I will not make any excuses, but no longer shall I hide. Now, I shall help to truly make amends, not just for the Special Zone, but for all the crimes Britannia has committed since its inception and usher the means to create a new world free from tyranny. And we will begin by building a coalition of nations. Zero announced. It is here that we will discuss not only how to handle the deception forces occupying our world, but what is to become of the planet Earth once this war is over. This meeting is not to be taken lightly, the decisions we make will reverberate for generations to come. So let us begin. As the meeting began, Diethard Reed had stood in an adjacent room as several of his underlings began to record the session. While he maintained a calm facade, his inner fanatic couldn't help but get giddy. Even after the Decepticons have completely uprooted Britannia, Zero and Prime were able to bring together the Chinese Federation, the EU, and nearly every other country in this planet. They truly believe in their peace through unity movement. Whether or not it will succeed in the future, as well as the war against the Decepticons, I shall document it all. I will bear witness to either the birth of a new world, or the death of the current one. One thing is certain, nothing shall ever be the same again after this. The masked man that was known as Wizard stood at the top of a small building facing the vast ocean around Horai Island. He stood alone as the wind blew his cape back slightly, silently contemplating everything that's been happening. Enjoying the view, he glanced behind to see Sarah approaching him, and she wasn't alone. Optimus Prime walked next to the building, allowing them both to be on equal level with him. I'm surprised neither of you are with Zero. Wizard said. You seem to be among his closet companion. He spoke to Sarah first before glancing at Optimus. And you are the leader of the Autobots, aren't you? Zero is capable of handling the delegation on his own. Optimus answered. Though we Autobots will help in driving the Decepticons off this world, and protecting it against future invaders, the future of this world should ultimately be decided by those who live here. We are guardians and soldiers, not rulers. And the people don't want to think they're trading in one giant metallic ruler for another. Wizard seemed to understand, even though you stand as equal to Zero, not his superior. You catch on quick, Sarah said. But then again, that is to be expected from the former head of the Zevon family. Wizard gave a slight sigh as he removed his mask and hat, revealing his true face of Oegros Zevon. Was I that obvious? Zero felt it was best to conduct a thorough background check. Optimus explained. At the time, we had to be certain of who we could trust. Nobody else is aware of your identity, save the three of us, Oegros. I thank you for that, he said with a slight nod. I think the obvious question should be why a Britannian nobleman would support an international anti-Britannian movement, but given how you became head of the family, can I assume it's a way of atonement? Sarah asked. What exactly do you know? Oegros asked. The Zevon family was a low-ranking noble family in Britannia. Optimus began. More often than not, their heads were females, with males only becoming heads when all female heirs are deceased. Less than a decade ago, the previous head and knight of the round, Olivia Zevon, was killed in a terrorist attack. Despite the official reports though, Lelouch suspects terrorists were not involved. He's right. I was the one who arranged for my sister's death. Oegros revealed, looking down with regret. Optimus and Sarah said nothing as they continued to listen. I didn't do it though just to become head of the family. There's a reason the Zevon family was so low in ranking, so nobody could suspect how closely they work with the Emperor, as enforcers for the Geass order. Pluton. Chera's eyes narrowed. Yes. Oegros continued. Initially, they were just black ops for Britannia, until they were absorbed by VV into the Geass order. I felt since Pluton worked so closely with the Emperor, they had more power than anyone, and I wanted that power for myself. But I was just too young and brash. It wasn't until I saw the Geass order myself, after leading the assault that killed Orpheus' lover, Maribel's sister, that I realized just how rotten the Geass order and Charles Z. Britannia truly was. He choked slightly, fighting back his tears. I killed my own sister, hurt my family. He couldn't finish his sentence, unable to fight back against the guilt that had been burning inside him like a fire for years to come. Sarah stepped forward to put a slight hand on his shoulder. She said nothing, but she understood him. She understood just how much having a regrettable past can be such a burden. So, you became wizard and helped to create Peace Mark as a way to atone. Optimus followed along. I am assuming that neither Orpheus nor Uldren know of you. No, please don't tell them, he muttered. We won't, but you should. Sarah said. They, as well as Maribel, all three of them deserve the truth. They do, but, I can't, not right now. Sarah sighed as a sad smile formed on her face. Believe me, Oegros, I know exactly what you mean. Thank you, for not telling anyone, he turned toward Optimus. And, thank Zero for me, as well. We will. Optimus nodded in understanding. Even though the Prime could not condone his actions in the past, he understood Oegros' desire for redemption. It was well founded in the Autobots and Black Knights. More than a few members have checkered pasts and seek atonement for their actions. He could only hope that Oegros finds a way to do just that, and find a way to make peace with his niece and nephew. Euphemia sat down next to Cornelia on a bench outside, taking a deep breath in mental exhaustion as one of their half-siblings approached them. Having a hard time? Maribel asked. Politics, I know it's for a good cause, but it's also quite the headache. Euphy said, rubbing her hand down her face as Maribel sat down next to her. Not to mention the way several of them looked at me. Euphy, you know that's not, Cornelia tried to tell her. You don't have to say anything, sister. I already know, Euphemia said, but I'm not going to let that stop me. Lelouch and Optimus have trusted me with this, and I have no intention of letting them down. Maribel couldn't help but laugh. Look at you, Euphy. You got a real fire inside you now. Acting like a rebel, but then again, you always were the rebellious one in our family. Now we all are, Cornelia said with a slight smile. It is nice to see you again, Maribel. You too, Cornelia, Maribel replied. I like what you've done with your hair, by the way. It looks nice, makes you seem like a completely different person. Thank you, Cornelia smiled. I have tried my hardest to change. And you have changed, sister. We all have, Euphy told her. Even after what Megatron and the Decepticons have put us all through, here we all stand together. And I couldn't be any happier. She looked towards Maribel. And I'm certain your mother and sister would be happy too, Maribel. Thank you, Yuffie. Maribel stifled back some tears before a scowl formed on her face. I can't believe I was tricked so easily. Turned into a tool. You know you are not to blame for that, Maribel. Cornelia said, having been made aware of the circumstances surrounding Maribel's family and the cause of their deaths and separations. It was that monster of an uncle who attacked you, stole your sister from you, and our wretched father who brainwashed you. He brainwashed all of us. Be it his Geass or lies. Maribel choked a bit. While she isn't with us anymore, I'm at least glad Yulia was able to find someone to make her happy, and tried to save her in the end. Deciding to change the subject a bit, Euphemia spoke up. How is Aldrin doing? Learning that she has a twin brother, that is. She's taking it surprisingly well. Maribel replied. A little awkward, but otherwise, open-minded. Speaking of which, where is the rest of our family? Lelouch said he wanted to get to know young Tianzi, give her a reason to trust him. Cornelia answered. Nunnally is with Sayoko and Alice, taking a look at her new nightmare, and Rai is probably with Bulkhead, taking the time to relax. I'm just glad we're all here together now. Yuffie said, pulling both her sighters in an embrace with both her arms, which Maribel and Cornelia promptly returned in kind. So am I, Yuffie. So am I. Maribel smiled. How long have they been up there? Zero asked as he stood with Kagaya and Shink, looking toward the sky, trying to find something that they couldn't quite see with the naked eye. For about 10 minutes, Shink had actually kept track of every second as his arms were crossed, trying to maintain a calm expression, but Kagaya noticed his fingers twitching. Don't worry, Windblade may seem carefree, but she'll make sure nothing happens to Her Majesty. Kagaya assured. So don't be a worrywart like how Lelouch is with Nunnally. I'm standing right here, Zero said, to which Kagaya responded by sticking her tongue out at him. Hear them come, Shink said as he saw Windblade's jet mode descend from the clouds and fly straight down toward them. Her jet mode slowed its descent before landing 20 feet away from the three of them. Her cockpit opened up to allow the excited Tianzi to climb out just before Windblade transformed. Shink. Tianzi ran up to him with a wide smile and sparkles in her eyes. It was amazing. Windblade flew up and down and around and in circles, and I thought it was super scary at first. But then when I looked out and saw the island and how small it looked, I saw all the big white fluffy clouds. I wanted to touch them so badly. And the sky was so clear and blue. I've never had so much fun in my life. It was so fun. See, told ya you'd enjoy it. Windblade smirked toward the young girl, who quickly ran up to hug the Autobot's leg. Thank you so much, Windblade. Can we do it again sometime? Please. She tried to give her best puppy eye expression with a smile. Aw, how can I say no to that face? You got it, kiddo. Windblade promised. Yay. Tianzi cheered. Lelouch couldn't help but smile underneath his mask. He was glad to see that the girl who had spent her whole life having others make her choices for her was now given a chance to be an actual kid again. It was no less than what she deserved. And with people like Nunnally and Kagaya around, she was certain Tianzi would make friends easily if she had already befriended an Autobot like Windblade. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, Your Majesty. Shink smiled, getting the young Empress' attention. But there is someone who wants to meet you. He and Kagaya parted ways to reveal Zero, causing Tianzi to look a little nervous. There's no need to be afraid, Your Majesty. Kagaya tried to assure her, picking up her nervous reluctance. Zero is a really good person. It's not hard to understand why she's afraid. It's hard to trust just a mask, isn't it? Zero's mask opened up to reveal the face of the young revolutionary, causing Tianzi to gasp in surprise. He didn't look that much older than her. He kneeled to her level and spoke with a gentle smile. My name is Lelouch, I used to be a prince of Britannia. But I was exiled by my father when I was younger than you. He began. I know how it feels like you're not in control of your own life, when someone or something tries to force you down a path you don't want to be on. You may not understand now, but you are a living person, Your Majesty. As such, you control your fate. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, and it is your right as well. Whatever choice you want to make on how you want to live your life is entirely up to you, and nobody here will make it for you. But if it's alright with you, it wouldn't hurt to have friends that can help show you what your options are. So, what do you say? Are you willing to give all of us, a chance? He offered his hand to her. Tianzi was speechless at first. The masked man that had shaken the entire world to its core had revealed his face so casually to her and spoke in a tone that was so understanding and caring, just like Shink. The look in his eyes was one of compassion, just like when she first saw in the kind and awe-inspiring giant who saved her, Optimus Prime. She glanced at Shink, who only nodded in encouragement. That was all she needed to reach out and accept his hand. I will. Holy crap, look at that. Ryo exclaimed as he, Yukiya, Ayano, Strongarm, Sideswipe, and Grindcore saw TAI's holographic recordings of Grimlock's fights in the Sahara Desert as well as the Chinese Federation. A goddamn T-Rex. You guys can transform into cars, tanks, jets, but a dinosaur. Ayano also exclaimed, how in the hell is that even possible? It shouldn't be. Strongarm shook her head. Cybertronians can only transform into vehicles. We can't transform into animals. The only thing that can even come close to anything like that are mini-cons that have a more beast-like design to them, such as Soundwave's mini-cons Ravage and Laserbeak. So, how's this guy able to do it? Yukiya asked. I have the answer. TAI appeared in front of the group. Grimlock was the leader of a special Autobot group called the Lightning Strike Coalition Force. But they were captured by the Decepticon scientist Shockwave, and based on Grimlock's report, they were experimented on. I've heard of Grimlock's old team. Those guys were real powerhouses. Sideswipe said. Their body count was about as high as the Wreckers, and that's saying something. I love my fellow Wreckers and all, but I've studied each of these guys' missions and they are awesome. Grindcore squealed like a kid. Someone's a fanboy, huh? Yukiya teased. I even almost named myself Grimlock to show respect to the odd guy. Grindcore revealed. But, I decided against it since I can't really live up to the legend. But that's not stopping me from smashing stuff. I hear ya, big guy. Sideswipe said as they shared a fist bump. So, if Grimlock's whole team was experimented on, does that mean they can all transform into dinosaurs? Ayano asked. Also based on Grimlock's report, that is affirmative. TAI confirmed. Well, it is affirmative for Swoop, Snarl, and Slug. They had lost contact with Sludge prior to their capture. So, where's the rest of these Dinobots? Ryo asked. Grimlock had said they were last seen on Cybertron, not far from Shockwave's Spacebridge Tower before it exploded, which sent Grimlock to this planet. TAI explained. But, that was more than 50 of your Earth years ago, so their current location is still unknown. Strongarm noticed the look of concern on each of the three young soldiers' faces. I would not worry. I have studied each of the Lightning Coalition Strikes battles and they have proven to be among the strongest team of Autobots. And if Grimlock's report is any indication, Shockwave's experiments have only made them stronger, so I am certain they're still alive. Yeah, old Shocky really screwed himself with this little experiment. Sideswipe smirked. Ayano then looked toward the sun in the sky with a distant look in her eyes. Ya know, it's funny. Ever since Japan fell to Britannia, I never actually thought we'd be able to make a real difference, especially with how many we lost. She looked down slightly. But now look at us, we're freaking Black Knights, working with the Autobots. Yeah, pretty awesome, isn't it? Ryo said. Well, let's make the most of it. Yukiya added. By sending as many Decepticons as we can to the scrap pile. Sounds like a plan. Sideswipe said as all 6 of them, human and Autobot, all put their fists together for a conjoined fist bump. To say it was awkward was a huge understatement. Twin brother and sister sat on a bench, looking out toward the ocean, neither of them uttering a word to each other, but one couldn't blame them. On Orpheus' side, he was aware of his family's history and knew he had a twin sister in the Britannian military, a knight to a member of the royal family. Under any other circumstances, she would have been an enemy and he wouldn't hesitate to fight her. But he didn't have any personal grudge towards her, nor did he blame her for anything. She was born literally at the same time as him, and had no control over his life at all. On Uldren's side, she had no idea she had any siblings, much less a twin brother, one who supported a terrorist network against the empire she made a vow to serve. However, after having learned the truth of her empire, such as the circumstances surrounding the tragedy of Maribel's family, as well as the Geass order, she had sympathy toward the sibling she never even knew existed. "So, I hear your friends call you Oz." Uldren tried to strike up a conversation. "Mine call me that too. We'll probably have to do something about that," Orpheus replied. "I can see the confusion already." Uldren nervously rubbed the back of her neck. "Listen, Orpheus, I'm sorry." "For what, exactly?" Orpheus asked. "For what happened to you, being sold off to a militarized cult at birth, for what happened when you tried to escape," she answered. "Well, it's not like any of that was your fault," he replied. "Blame that bastard Charles and his freak of a brother, as well as our messed up family. Our family wasn't all bad, our mother was a good person." Uldren tried to say. "Well, I never knew her," Orpheus said with a hint of resentment, which his sister didn't blame him for. A look of curious and even hope fell in his eyes. "Did she ever say anything about me?" "Not that I know of, but that could just be from Charles's own Geass wiping her memories," Uldren quickly said. "I mean, he practically brainwashed the entire world one or another." "True," Orpheus admitted. It descended into awkward silence once more. "Listen, I know I probably have no right to say this," she began. "The two of us have lived completely different lives and have taken very different paths. But we are family, and those paths have now intersected. And I'm hoping that you can give me a chance to be a sister. You're my brother and I want a chance to get to know you, but if you don't want that, it's fine. I won't force anything on you." Orpheus sighed before replying. "Yeah, we did live two completely different lives. I never knew anyone in my biological family, but I did meet some people who I got close to. And we are going to be working together, and we're now fighting for the same thing, so I guess there's no harm in at least giving it a shot. Just don't go and act all buddy-buddy with me or anything, let's take it slow. I've never done anything like this. Sounds like a plan to me." She offered her hand to shake with a smile. He returned the smile and shook her hand in response. "Come on." She pulled him up. "Let's see how everyone else is doing." The pair walked toward the combined group that consisted of the remainder of the Crimson Knights, as well as Gino, Monica, and even Zidane as they sat around Smokescreen and Prowl as the two Autobots recounted a battle on Cybertron. It was in the dead of night. Smokescreen began. "It was day," Prowl corrected. "We were surrounded on all sides, warships and snipers everywhere. Even the Insecticons," Smokescreen continued. "It was only a battalion," Prowl corrected again. "At most just a few bruisers. We were ankle-deep in molten steel," Smokescreen stated. "We were standing on an island in the middle of a molten steel lake, not actually in it," Prowl corrected once again. "It was either us, or them," Smokescreen told. "So, I provided covering fire while Prowl used his camouflage to sneak into the enemy's lines, grab some heavy artillery, and blow the engines on one of the ships so that it crashed down on all of them. We then climbed the top of the ship over the molten steel into victory." "That part is true," Prowl confirmed. "Ah yeah," Gino exclaimed as everyone else looked enthralled in their tale. "That sounds awesome. Come on, tell us more," Toto encouraged. "Bet you're enjoying this, aren't ya, Jean?" Ashley nudged her with a wide grin, but she didn't return it as she simply stood up. "I gotta go," she walked away, leaving everyone else to look in either confusion or concern. "What's with her?" Zidane asked. "I'll talk to her." Ashley knew exactly what was eating her and proceeded follow. "You guys just keep on chatting about war stories, I'll get back to ya soon." "Sure thing." Sokia nodded in understanding. Jean had walked around the corner of a building and out of everyone's sight. Once she was certain she was alone, she clutched her sides as her body shook with emotional stress. One minute she was helping the Decepticons and him in trying to destroy the world. The next, she was now part of a group determined to save the world. They were all so kind and gentle and understanding, none of them held any grudge toward her and treated her with respect, but that wasn't the source of the emotional whiplash. "Hey," she looked around in surprise to see Ashley looking toward her with a knowing expression. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Jean tried to stand straight. "No, you're not." Ashley walked right in front of her as she tried to look away. We've known each other since we were kids, Jean. I know what's bugging you, and it's not you feeling like the odd one out here. It's Shin, isn't it? She hated how he could easily see right through her. Her body shook as her eyes clenched shut. How could he? He took us in. He took me in. He trusted me enough to make me his right hand. I followed him every step of the way, never questioning him. I've loved him. So why did he turn on me? Why did he try to kill me? She practically screamed as Ashley continued to listen. He was trying to help, destroy the world. I wasn't trying to, I just wanted to talk. But she didn't finish as she fell on her knees and proceeded to wail and cry her eyes out. For one of the few moments in his life, Ashley didn't have a grin or a snappy joke to say. He lowered himself to sit down next to her as she continued to cry. Maybe we never really knew him, or something inside him changed. Ashley said, he took us in, yeah. But did we really know him? Or was that camaraderie he went on about just a facade, and he's really a psychopath underneath? I'm not sure if we'll ever know. But, there is one thing I can say, I'll always have your back, Jean. No matter what, even if we get kicked out of the Black Knights and the bots turn their backs on us too, I won't. It'll be you and me against the world. She looked up toward him with teary eyes as he gave an assuring smile. But, these guys seem way too nice and badass to do anything like that, so I think we're good. That caused Jean to laugh slightly. Wait, are you laughing? Icy-eyed Jeanette actually laughed. Shut up, you asshole. She said in between her laughs and sobs as she punched his arm. Nah, too late. I heard y'all laugh. Ashley nudged her back. Meanwhile, Nunnally, Alice, Misty, Akito, Claus, and Layla followed Alita 1 through the massive nightmare hangar where the science division was helping its newest recruits get acclimated, as well as working on some of the new nightmares. This is most impressive, Layla noted, looking around. Most of these nightmares look more advanced than anything even Britannia could devise. That's to be expected when working with alien technology. Lloyd walked up with Cecile right behind him. He glanced towards Akito. So, you're the famous ghost of Hannibal. I'll admit those Alexander nightmares you make are certainly unique, even compared to my precious Lancelot. And the way you slice up the enemy like a Thanksgiving turkey, honestly, I think you're an even better Devaker than Suzaku, and that's saying something. I'm not sure how to take that comment. Akito replied. Was that a compliment? Believe it or not, it is. Cecile said. Lloyd here is not exactly the type to have a casual conversation. Hey, I'm a born sociopath. Lloyd shrugged. He says that so casually, Claus said, whispering to Layla, before smiling. I think I like him. Oh brother. Layla rolled her eyes, while she cared for entrusted Claus. The idea of his and Lloyd's personalities mixing via their interactions was an unsettling one. Ahem. Ratchet coughed, getting their attention as he walked onto the scene. If you're done wasting time, you wanted to see how nightmare progression is going. Of course, lead the way, Ratchet. Alita gestured. The Autobot scientist walked and motioned for everyone else to follow him, which they did. Recruitment certainly hasn't been an issue. Ratchet began. With support from the remaining superpowers, more people have been providing aid, as well as their resources, which has certainly helped in nightmare production. We have the typical run-of-the-mill Actasuchus and Vincent wards, though we also have begun producing Gareth nightmares for some of our more experienced soldiers. Lloyd also explained. I'm more interested in the unique and semi-one-of-a-kind nightmares we get to work with now. We have all the WZERO nightmares right over here. Cecile gestured to the right of the hangar where Akito's Alexander Liberté was hanging along with custom Alexander Valiants belonging to Ryo, Yukiya, and Ayano, and even all the other Alexanders the WZERO had on hand. The team working with them were being led by Anna and Nina. Anna, Nina. Nunnally waved to them as she and Layla were the first to approach them. Hi Nunnally. Nina smiled. It seems you're acclimating quite well, Anna. Layla noted. Oh yes, we've been doing wonderfully here. Anna looked just as excited as Nina was. We have full access to Cybertronian technology, it's amazing what the Autobots have. We might even be able to work out the kinks on the neural net. Speaking of which, where is Sophie? Claus asked as he and Misty joined them. Working with Jetfire on her husband. Anna answered, her mood dimming slightly, followed by the others. Even with Cybertronian medical science, it might not awaken him from his coma. But there is still hope, though. Nina quickly said. We've only seen a glimpse of what Cybertronian science is capable of, and that's just with their technology. I'm sure their neural studies. Hold on a moment. Ratchet spoke up. Cybertronian and human minds are completely different from one another. I can't say for certain whether our science can help, but I won't say that it's hopeless. No offense, Ratchet, but you don't have to be so pessimistic all the time. Alita told him. There's pessimism and there's realism, Alita. Ratchet replied. I know the difference between the two and I try to veer toward the later. Ah, so are we debating the finer terms of realism and pessimism now? Lloyd asked in his usual causal tone. Because I can go on all day with that if you want. How about we get back to focusing on nightmares, alright? How are the ones with Maribel's team? Nunnally asked, trying to get back on track. Glad you asked. Cecile was on board, not wanting to get involved in another philosophical debate with Lloyd, those were always so exhausting. The group was led away from the Alexanders, leaving Anna and Nina to continue working before they met up with Rakshata's team, currently working on the nightmares belonging to the Glinda Knights, consisting of the Lancelot Trial, the Lancelot Grail, the Vincent Graham, the Zetland, the two Bradfords, even Jeans Grachus was present among them. Let me ask you something, Asplund. Rakshata began. How did it feel having your precious Lancelot copied, not once but twice? And how does it feel now that I'm able to make some improved modifications to them? I honestly don't feel a thing. Lloyd replied. I personally didn't design the Grail or the Trial, that belongs to the division under Schneisel's command, so you can go nuts with them. And they say imitation is the highest form of flattery. Then you won't feel bad when I make them superior to the Albion then, right? Rakshata challenged, causing Lloyd to give something of a mix between a glare and a grin himself. Ooh, is that a challenge? Moving right along, Ratchet exclaimed, breaking up any possible quarrel. Do you two wish a repeat of the ion cannon incident? No need to go overkill, Ratchet, we're just having fun. Rakshata told him. You could stand to unwind a bit. That earned an annoyed tisk from Ratchet while everyone else just looked confused. Ion cannon incident? Layla asked nunnally. Don't ask. Rakshata, is it? Akito got her attention as his eyes set on another red nightmare that he didn't recognize right away. Yes, Akito was it. She replied. What is that supposed to be? Akito pointed to a red and gold nightmare, and to say it was tasteless and gaudy would be an understatement. The red was brighter and bolder than even the Gurren model, and the gold design carried with it the image of Falcon's head on its chest with wings on the nightmare's head. That would be the new custom nightmare that Ashley Asura requested. Rakshata answered. The RPI-33 Dagonet. Is that really a nightmare? Claus asked. Looks like something from one of those kids' cartoons. Ya know, the ones where those kids transform into colored superheroes and have giant robots fight monsters or something like that. I don't know what to say to that. Even Nunnally cringed a bit at the sight of the gaudy nightmare. Yes, this particular nightmare is, rather, Layla wasn't quite sure to put it to words. Ugly. Alice said bluntly. It is ugly, plain and simple. Mr. Asura must have strange tastes. Misty commented. Yes, even I have to agree. Alita commented. A little too flamboyant, not even Zero would go this far and we all know how dramatic he is. I'm not the one who designed its appearance. Rakshata said. It's how Asura requested it. Despite the way it looks, I assure you that it's fully functional and will surpass the necessary standards if he handles it well. You said. Despite the way it looks, so you can agree that this Dagonet is a fashion disaster too, Rakshata. Yes, Rakshata agrees with us. Alice said. Glad you're with us, Rakshata. Akito added. That's not what I think. She quickly stated before looking away slightly. Well, a little. If we're done here, there is one special nightmare that we wished to show you. One that I, Preceptor, and Fix-It have worked extensively on. Ratchet said, and once again proceed forward with everyone else close behind. It wasn't long before they made it to the end of the path where the final nightmare was presented before them. As Ratchet said, it was currently being worked on by the Autobot Preceptor and the Mini-Con, Fix-It. Most of them all looked in surprise, particularly Alice, as they saw it. It looked exactly like the unit she piloted as the Dark Knight Headmaster, Speed. Only instead of its black and purple paint job, it was white and blue. Even the black wings on its back were painted white. Rather than looking like a harbinger of death, its appearance was that of a guardian angel. Is that? Alice stuttered. Your nightmare, Ratchet revealed. It was quite difficult to get a proper analysis of it, so we had to take it apart down to the last circuit to get a reading. This was clearly Shockwave's design, Perceptor said as he and Fix-It turned toward the group. Only he would come up with something so complex and so devastating. However, we were able to rebuild and redesign it to better suit the pilot's needs. Fix-It added. Originally, it was wired directly into the pilot's nervous system. While this would enable faster mobility, it would also cause great harm to the pilot inside if it took too much damage. Perceptor finished. But that is no longer the case. It has a standard cockpit now. Of course, not just anyone can pilot such a machine. Ratchet said. It will likely be given to someone who is a capable fighter, as well as has familiarity with such a device. And, who might that be? Alice asked, wondering who would pilot that nightmare, even though it was rather obvious. You, Alice. Alita revealed, causing her to gasp in surprise as she turned toward the pink Autobot, who smiled at her. You're gonna need it, since you'll be part of the Zero Squad. Yet another surprise she was not prepared for. The Zero Squad. Me. You've proven more than capable in battle, so I'd say you'd be a good fit for the nightmare and the position. Alita summed up. Yes but, Alice stuttered, not sure what to think of all this. On one hand, she was excited to be given not only such a position, but also a safer version of her old unit. On the other, she had not expected people who were her enemies to be so rewarding. She felt a hand grasp her own and looked to see Nunnally smiling at her. I think you can do it, Alice. Nunnally told her. I know you can. You're amazing, and you deserve it. But, if you don't want to do it, we won't force you. Alice looked toward Nunnally, a strong feeling of humility mixing with pride and joy. Nunnally just called her amazing. She told her she deserved. Even though she herself didn't believe herself to be, if her first real friend outside the Geass order felt she was ready, then she'd give it her best shot. I'll try my best. Alice nodded with a smile. Well, you'll need a name. Misty told her. All custom nightmares have their own names. Alice tried to think, but she couldn't come up with anything. I don't know. Nunnally, what do you think I should name it? Nunnally took a look at the special nightmare, her attention drawing to the wings. Suddenly an idea came to mind. How about Pegasus? Pegasus? Ratchet asked. The winged horse of Greek mythology. Layla also asked. It was the horse ridden by Zeus. Nunnally confirmed. And given it was wings, I just felt it'd be natural for it. Akito gave a small chuckle. In many ways, people can consider Cybertronians to be gods. And if this nightmare allows one to ride alongside such a being, I think the name fits perfectly. Why not? Claus shrugged aloofly. Sounds catchy enough. Oh, so now we're talking about divine figures, are we? Lloyd was about to go off as usual, only for Cecile to pull on his ear. Ow, ow. Lloyd, not now, please, she said in emotional exhaustion. Pegasus. Alice let it ring around in her head for a moment. It had a nice ring to it. Yes, the name did seem to fit. That's perfect. The Wall of the Fallen. A large stone memorial that stood over 20 feet tall and was twice as long. Engraved on this wall were the names of all who had fallen in battle, be they Autobot or human. It had a large array of flowers and other items used for paying respect all across the bottom of it, as it was frequently visited by either the civilians who lived on Horai Island or the fellow soldiers of those no longer with them. Right now, the three present were RC, Colin, and her mother Akari. All three remained silent as they looked toward the names, Cliffjumper, and Naoto Kazuki, embedded on the wall. After their battle at Castle Weisswolf, and the personal victory they achieved there, the two female warriors felt it best to pay their respects here, with Akari joining them. Even though those two did not perish at the hands of their now deceased foe, it just felt right. RC had finally avenged her first partner, and Colin had done the same for so many innocent Japanese slaughtered at the hands of their foe. They were soon joined by two more people, Suzaku and Euphemia, the later having a bouquet of flowers in her hand. I hope we're not intruding. Suzaku said. Not at all. Akari replied, motioning them to join, which they did as Euphemia laid the flowers at the wall for the umpteenth time, glancing at the name, Dreadwing, that was embedded on the wall as well. So, is it true? Yuffie asked, looking towards Colin and RC. Arachnid is gone. Yeah, she's gone, Colin confirmed. Yuffie couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Though she was still a gentle soul, there were quite a few people she held genuine hate for, among them were Megatron and her late father. But there was only one that she truly wished to be gone for all the crimes that she had committed. Good, Suzaku said. I'm glad she's gone, really. But still, You wish you got a shot in? RC asked. Yes, Suzaku confirmed. I know you had more of a history with her, RC. She took the life of your partner and friend, and probably so many Autobots. But she was also to blame for what happened to Dreadwing. And I don't blame you for feeling that way. RC told him. We all do. If you were the one who got the kill shot in, I'd still be satisfied. I'm just glad she's finally gone, and she can't hurt anyone else. Me too, Yuffie said. She even killed mine and Cornelia's mother, according to Maribel. Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry to hear that. Akari looked toward her in sympathy. Thank you, Yuffie replied. While she was saddened at her biological mother's death, she didn't exactly have much of a history with her. Her mother wasn't necessarily cruel or abusive, she wasn't the kindest person either. All she ever thought of was the continuation of Britannia's oppressive ways. Well, Arachnid may be gone, but Megatron is still out there. So, the war's not over yet, Colin said. No, but I promise to run the Lancelot's blade through Megatron's evil spark the first chance I get. Even if I have to cleave through the entire Decepticon army to do it. Suzaku vowed. If Lelouch and Optimus don't beat you to it first, RC said. I understand how you all feel. Akari said. That monster, he deserves what's coming. But, you can't let that need for vengeance consume you. Revenge is like a poison, it can take you over, and before you know it, it could turn us into something ugly. Yeah, I know, Colin said, looking down. More than once, she thought about revenge and she can't even count the number of times she let those dark thoughts consume her, especially when it came to avenging her brother. Soon, her mother wrapped her arm around her shoulder. But, you've proven that you were able to step out of that darkness. Akari spoke to her with a proud smile. You fought for justice, not vengeance. Your brother meant the world to both of us, Colin, but I know he wouldn't want us living 1 second with vengeance in our lives. I'm sure he's looking down on you with pride, just as I am. Colin didn't even stop the tears of joy falling from her eyes. Thanks Mom, she choked as she hugged her mother, with RC kneeling to rub her hands down Colin's back. Akari looked toward RC with an appreciative expression. Thank you, RC, for looking after my little girl. You're welcome. RC nodded with a smile of her own. Yuffie's eyes were also becoming misty at such a sight of her own, even as Suzaku reached out to grasp her hand, both looking toward one another with emotional and happy expressions. Just as they were certain Cliffjumper and Colin's brother were looking down on them, Dreadwing was doing the same for the both of them. And as he made them promise, they would see this war through to the end, and live their lives to the fullest. Meanwhile, Bulkhead sat down at the shore of the island, with Rice sitting right by his side. The two said nothing as they continued to stare out at the ocean, but they didn't need to say anything to each other. They were partners and the best of friends, so they already understood one another. Excuse me. They turned around to see Nonette approaching them. Mind if I join you? The wreckers looked toward each other with smiles. Sure thing. Rai gestured. One more wrecker ain't gonna hurt. Bulkhead also encouraged, causing Nonette to smile as she sat down and joined them, sitting close to Rai in particular. I remember you being in a spot like this. Nonette spoke to Rai. Sometimes, you'd come down to a beach, and just stare out at the ocean. Not saying anything, just watching and listening. I like the quiet, Rai said. The breeze of the air above the ocean, it's peaceful. Yeah, even Bulkhead understood. As much fun as it is lopping fenders with the cons, you just need a moment to kick back as well and enjoy the little things. Speaking from experience, Bulkhead. Nonette asked. Well, Cybertron didn't have any oceans or anything, Bulkhead began. Wasn't there a sea of rust or something? Rai asked. Well, It wasn't an actual sea. Not like these oceans. Bulkhead replied. But, when we had ion storms in the atmosphere, let me tell ya, that was a big event. Would sit on the top of whatever building I was working on and get a good view. Sounds pretty awesome. I'd love to see that. Nonet commented. Listen, Bulk, I know I've probably said this before but, thanks. For looking out for Rai. Hey, the guy's my friend and my partner, so it wasn't any trouble. Bulkhead said, nudging one of his massive fingers against Ray's side, who pushed it away with a smirk of his own. I'm also glad you're here, Nonet. Really, I am. Rai said sincerely, causing Nonet to smile back as she pulled Rai in close with one arm. So, how are things with Shirley? Nonet asked in a somewhat teasing form, causing Rai to blush and stutter. Well, not much really. Kinda hard to focus on dating or anything, given we're at war and all, Rai said, rubbing the back of his head. Well, you better say something soon. Bulkhead also teased. Like you said, we're at war, so you might end up kicking the bucket before you get a chance to say anything. Yeah right, I'm not kicking anything except the bad guys in between their legs. Rai joked. But, seriously, have you seen Shirley at all? Nonet asked. I need to talk to her about something. Rai looked a little confused. Last time I heard, she, Rivals, and Millie were heading to the Ark. Wanted to talk to Lelouch. So, you're the one that Prime chose to lead alongside him. The one called Zero. Grimlock looked towards Lelouch, still clad in his Zero attire, just without his mask, as the young revolutionary narrowed his eyes. The young revolutionary stood on the catwalk on the bridge of the Ark. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Ironhide, Geass, and Ultra Magnus were present as well. You don't seem that impressive. Grimlock commented. I let my actions and results speak for me. Lelouch replied. So, you'll just have to see what I'm capable of, Grimlock. While Grimlock did like that sort of mindset of actions speaking louder than words, it didn't exactly endear him to Lelouch. I'm not easily impressed, boy. Alright, break it up. Geass promptly stepped in between them before looking toward Grimlock. Look man, I know he's a kid and all but trust me, this kid more than impresses. There's a reason Optimus put him in charge. Grimlock said nothing but grunted in acknowledgement before turning around and prepared to leave. Not so fast. Ultra Magnus quickly blocked his path. Everyone looked towards the Autobot commander and could already feel the tension rising between them. You want something, Magnus? Grimlock asked. I understand that your own method of command style with your own unit. Ultra Magnus told him. And I respect you as a fellow commander and soldier. However, times have changed. You are under the command of Optimus Prime and Zero, as such you must be willing to follow our lead and orders to the letter. I already said I'll play nice. Grimlock replied, but I handle things my way. Your rather destructive approach to handle the Decepticons is unsettling to say the least. Magnus spoke to him. Your Lightning Strike Coalition force made the Wreckers look like standard soldiers. It is one thing to do what it takes to defeat your enemy, but when it comes to collateral damage, especially considering your newfound strength and power. I won't burn the fleshies alive, if that's what you're worried about. Grimlock stated. If you're that nervous, then just tell these so-called Black Knights to keep their distance. This coming from the bot who deserted us at the Ark. Ironhide commented. I did not desert anybody. Grimlock exclaimed, walking toward Ironhide rather forcefully, while the veteran Autobot stood his ground despite Grimlock's intimidating size. My team and I found Shockwave's project, which is what led you all to this rock in the first place. Which also led to you and your team being captured by Shockwave. Ironhide's optics narrowed. Grimlock was already growling. How can we know you won't do the same thing again? Are you testing me, you old piece of scrap metal? Grimlock growled, his optics beginning to glow. No, nobody is testing anybody. Optimus stepped in. We already have an arrangement, Grimlock. We will keep you informed, especially in regards to the status of your team, and allow you to handle things your own way. All we're asking is that you also keep us informed as well. Is proper communication fair enough for you? Grimlock slowly glanced toward Optimus, though tension in the air was still high, it slowly began to recede, as did the glow in Grimlock's eyes. Fair enough. He then turned back to Lelouch. Prime thinks you're worthy enough to lead alongside him. Then let me see your results for myself. Lelouch flashed his typical smirk. I accept your challenge. Grimlock wouldn't admit it out loud, but the kid had guts. He had a fire in his eyes all his own, and showed no signs of backing down, even in front of him. In a way, Grimlock could respect it. But it still took a lot more than that to earn Grimlock's approval. As the leader of the Dinobots proceeded to exit the bridge, he came to a stop to see Shirley, Millie, and Rivals about to enter the bridge. The three looked a bit nervous at the sight of the massive Autobot. Hi, Shirley waved nervously. Grimlock simply gave a nod before walking around them and leaving the bridge, where all the tension left with the Dinobot. How much of that did you guys hear? Bumblebee asked the former student council. Enough, Millie answered. So, the big guy's got a problem with authority or something. Grimlock and his team operated outside the normal chain of command. Optimus explained. So, Autobot Black Ops, huh? Rivals assumed. Are the other guys like him? No, most of them are a lot friendlier, especially Swoop. You kids would definitely get along with him. Geass told him. Yeah, that's cool. But what I was asking was that can they also turn into dinosaurs? Rivals asked. Based on Grimlock's report upon his rescue in the Sahara, it would seem so. Optimus confirmed. Dinobots, that is so cool. Rivals looked like he was about to explode with excitement like a comic book geek. Can't wait to see the cons get Jurassic Parked on. Is there something you children needed? Ultra Magnus asked, getting right to the point. Yeah. How did things go, Lulu? Shirley asked her friend. Ya know, with all the world leaders. Rather smoothly. Lelouch answered as he had walked down from the catwalk and toward the living area of the bridge with the rest of the former student council joining him. They all know the Decepticons are a threat we all face and have agreed to put their differences aside to stop them. That's great. Shirley beamed. So, are we ready to take the fight to them? Rivals asked excitedly. Not yet. Ironhide shook his head. We gotta get all the military organized. We can't just throw a bunch of tanks and nightmares at the cons and expect the problem to be resolved in a big explosion. Ironhide is correct. Optimus added. We have to ensure that victory against the Decepticons is one that is earned with minimal human casualties and without irreparably damaging the planet. Like what happened on Cybertron? Millie asked with a serious, yet understanding, tone of voice. Yeah, like with Cybertron. Bumblebee confirmed. The mood at that moment turned grim, as the dark fate of the Autobots, Homeworld was once again reminded, causing even the ever-stoic and serious Ultra Magnus to look down in sorrow and regret. Deciding to change the subject, Shirley spoke up. Hey, speaking of Cybertron, I've actually been wondering. She looked to Optimus directly. That phrase you guys always say, till all are one, what exactly does it mean? She rubbed the back of her neck with embarrassment. I know, we've all been saying it for months, so I'm kind of embarrassed that I'm even bringing it up now. Optimus smiled towards Shirley before responding. The phrase actually has two meanings to it. In the early days of Cybertron, before even the Golden Age, when one says, till all are one, it refers to when we are all one with the Allspark. But, doesn't mean when you guys, ya know, kick the bucket. Rivals asked with a slight wince. You'd think, but it's not as grim you would believe. Geass said. The Allspark is essentially the essence of our creator, Primus. It is the source of all Cybertronian life. Optimus continued. But life is finite, and when a Cybertronian life comes to an end, its spark is supposedly returned to its source within the Allspark, becoming one with it and all the other sparks that have passed on. But in doing so, this allows the Allspark itself to produce new life, new sparks from which new Cybertronians are born. Like reincarnation? Millie asked. Though there is no proof of reincarnation, as we have yet to encounter any individual Cybertronian that shares memories with a possible past life. Ultra Magnus explained. Though Optimus is a special case. That got their attention as they looked toward the Autobot leader in surprise. You're a reincarnation, Optimus? Shirley questioned. Believe it or not, he's the reincarnation of one of the original 13 primes, the 13th prime, to be specific. Lelouch confirmed. Whoa, Rivals said as he, Millie, and Shirley looked toward Optimus in awe. However, this is only possible through the matrix of leadership, which connects me to the others. Optimus continued. We have yet to encounter anything else. But, if that's the first meaning of the phrase, what's the second one? Millie asked. This was developed when our race became divided. Optimus explained. Initially the division between classes, before the war broke out and we were divided between Autobot and Decepticon. We often said, till all are one, then, because we hoped for a time when the war would end, and we would be no longer divided. We'd be neither Autobot nor Decepticon, nor high class or servant class, or any other form of division. We would all be one people, once more. Sadly however, with the destruction of Cybertron, that may no longer be the case. So why do you keep saying it? Rivals asked. "'Cause we still got hope." Ironhide answered. "We still got hope for peace and we don't have to fight anymore." "And it's possible too," Bumblebee added. "You've seen a few former Decepticons join us." As the three of them let their thoughts dwell on the matter, Shirley beamed as something came to mind for her. "It's like what you're doing with the Black Knights, Lulu." Lelouch looked toward her in confusion, as did everyone else. I'm not sure I understand. When you first formed the Black Knights, you were the only Britannian on the team. Everyone else was Japanese. Well, Colin's technically half Britannian, but you know what I mean. Shirley explained. But as you guys grew, more and more Britannians joined you, including me, all of us. She gestured to Rivals and Millie as well. Now look where we are. We've got people from all over the world, not just Japanese and Britannians. We have people from the Chinese Federation, from Europea, and all the other smaller countries. Heck, you have aliens with you. You've had aliens on your side ever since this whole thing started. She gestured to the Autobots around her. People of all different sizes, shapes, places, everything. It's like having a bunch of colors together. And when you mix a whole bunch of different colors together, you get black. The Black Knights. I know you probably only did it because Britannia felt they were pure and white, so you wanted to stand against them, but look how well it turned out. You've proven Britannia wrong, by showing that so many people can stand together, work together, and be friends with each other. We don't have to be separated or distinguished from each other just because we're different. It's our differences that make us special and brings us closer together. I know all of us aren't completely united yet, but everyone here, Autobot and human, right here and now, we are one. And you were the one who brought us together, Lulu. So, thank you." Lelouch really had no idea what to say at first. It surprised him how often Shirley would leave him speechless, but he felt both proud and humble at her praise. He looked away with a smile. "Well, it wasn't all me. I had some help." He glanced towards Optimus and Bumblebee as the two Autobots he was closest with nodded and smiled in their own way. "Oh, right." Shirley blushed in embarrassment. "Thank you, Optimus. You too, Bumblebee." "Of course." Optimus nodded. "Wow Shirley, that was just beautiful." Millie commented with a smile. "I think Rivals here is crying." "I'm not crying," Rivals exclaimed, trying to wipe his face with his sleeve. "That was one heck of a speech, kid," Geass said with an impressed smirk. "And you're totally right, by the way. You may not be a soldier, but it's people like you that keep us honest." Ironhide said with a smirk of his own. "Heck, you even impressed Magnus right here, and he's not so easily impressed." The group looked toward the Autobot commander, who said nothing, but he did give a small nod of approval toward Shirley, agreeing with every word she said. "Yeah, that was quite a speech." They heard Nonette's voice as she walked onto the bridge. "Nonette, hey there." Millie waved. "Enneagram." Ultra Magnus nodded in acknowledgement. "Commander," Nonette gave a brief salute as she entered the living area. "Did you need something?" Lelouch asked. "Actually, I was hoping to speak to you, Shirley," Nonette said, getting her attention, and everyone else's. "When we were in the Sahara Desert, meeting Grimlock for the first time, I ran into Anya. She wanted me to give you a message." "A message?" Shirley asked. While she did hope for Anya's safety and considered her a friend, she was still rather surprised as she didn't quite consider the former Knight of Six being that close toward her. One would think her message would be toward Suzaku or another former Knight of the Round. She said, "Look toward the stars as we have done." Nonette said, "Do you have any idea what that means?" Everyone looked toward Shirley, thinking she had some kind of answer. But, they clearly were not expecting her eyes to widen, almost like round dinner plates, or for tears to form in her eyes. Her face was pale, almost like she had just seen a ghost. "Shirley," Lelouch tried to reach out to her. "What's wrong?" Optimus asked. Daddy, she muttered, getting their attention. When I was little, my dad and I would stargaze, and he said, whenever he would leave and I would miss him, he said, look toward the stars, like we always do, and you'll see me. It didn't take long for everyone to reach the same conclusion. The only way Anya Alstrheim, the former Knight of Six, would know that would be as if the man himself had told her. Shirley fell to her knees as Lelouch, and the rest of their human friends, quickly kneeled around her to offer support as she cried and placed a hand over her mouth in emotional shock. My dad, he's alive. Meanwhile, in the now liberated EU, Soundwave led the Constructicons in clearing away the rubble of what was left of Castle Weisswolf, hoping to retrieve any surviving Decepticons that may be buried underneath the snow and rubble, as well as any pieces of equipment the Autobots and Black Knights may have left behind. They had managed to learn the location of Castle Weisswolf through Skybite, who had managed to be the only one so far that had escaped from the rubble, but had been unable to free the others. Once he met up with Soundwave and the Constructicons, Skybite was given a ground bridge portal back to Darkmount to report to Megatron, while the Constructicons handled the excavations and rescue. They had to act quickly, however. Now that Europia and Euro-Britannia were no longer under Decepticon occupation, they needed to move swiftly so human forces didn't notice and converge on their location. Already, there was a massive hole as most of the rubble had been cleared away, with the silent Decepticon standing at the edge, observing the Constructicons' work. Scavenger, the largest of the Constructicons, used his uniquely shaped body of his rotating wheels on top and bottom to clear away most the rubble from the center while the rest of his teammates worked. Scrapper and Longhaul picked up the largest pieces of debris, and while Longhaul used his strength to smash most of the debris into even smaller pieces, Scrapper simply tossed them aside. Hook's right arm launched a grappling hook to pull back on some of the debris, while Bonecrusher's arms converted into drills to dig even deeper. Mixmaster had found all the broken Britannian nightmares, and Alexander drones used in the attack, but found them unusable and simply tossed them into a pile before his right arm opened up to produce a barrel that spat out a stream of acid that began to melt away at the useless equipment. He heard a pinging signal and looked up in response towards Soundwave as his faceplate lit up to identify 4 Cybertronian signals at 4 specific spots. One of which had 2 smaller signals identical to mini-cons. We got survivors. Mixmaster called to his team and relayed instructions. Scavenger, you take the furthest one away. Longhaul and Scrapper get the one underneath the largest pile. Hook and Bonecrusher, there's one directly underneath your position. I got the last one. With that, the Constructicons got to work and moved to their specific locations. Scavenger used his large frame to bash and crush away all the debris around his specific spot, which lightened the load and allowed the large mole-like Decepticon named Underbite to break out with a roar and a moan of disgust. I had to eat rocks to dig my way out. Underbite felt his stomach. I'm gonna be sick. Get over it, ugly. Scavenger told him. Meanwhile, Longhaul and Scrapper were quick to lift the debris from the largest pile as Thunderhoof slowly began to pull himself up. Looking a little down in the dumps, Thunderhoof. Scrapper joked. You. What took you mooks so long? I thought my joints were gonna freeze up and go in stasis. Thunderhoof chastised. You're welcome, Longhaul said sarcastically as he slammed his hand on Thunderhoof's back, knocking him face first in the ground, causing him and Scrapper to laugh. Bonecrusher's drill helped to break through most of the rubble as a purple metallic hand busted out, which Hook grabbed and helped to haul Fracture out with Eraser and Divebomb emerging from his shoulders to stretch their limbs. That was close, Eraser said. Yeah, thought we were goners for sure. Divebomb added. Get over it, twerps. Fracture said. Oh hey, look at the high and mighty Fracture, needing help from the Constructicons. Hook mocked. Guesses, low-class bots got one over you, huh? Bonecrusher also mocked, while Fracture merely scowled. Mixmaster used more of his acid to melt away a pile of debris, but he made sure to keep the chemical composition light so that it wouldn't melt any Cybertronian metal, which paid off as Steeljaw slowly arose from the corroding rubble. How long have we been buried? Steeljaw got right to the point. Where is Skybite? Enough for the bots and their human pets to take the continent. That no good Sharktican's already gone back to Darkmount, Mixmaster informed. We should get out of here before they notice us. Consider yourself lucky. Steeljaw growled, more so toward himself for letting himself get outwitted and beaten by Zero and his Autobot companions. He would have revenge upon them, as well as Layla and her WZERO allies the first chance he gets. Soundwave. Steeljaw called up toward the silent Decepticon, taking notice of him. I need you to contact Shockwave. Our campaign in Europia may have been a failure, but we did get something out of all this. The wolf-like Decepticon opened his chest before reaching in to pull out the half-mangled and unconscious body of a human, who had half his own face torn off. But despite the terrible shape and massive damage done to his body, Shinhyuga Shang was still very much alive. New Kaon, Darkmount. Megatron sat on his throne, Starscream, Skybite, and Schneisel both kneeling before him as they had informed him of the situation in the Chinese Federation. Likewise, Soundwave had also contacted Megatron to let him know that despite the retrieval of Steeljaw and his team, their campaign in the EU had also failed. So, you mean to tell me, that despite the efforts of the most cunning individuals in our ranks, and Starscream, he snuck in a brief insult before continuing. Our enemies were able to gain control over the remaining two superpowers, as well as the remnants of Britannia. Megatron questioned in a seemingly calm tone, but anyone who knew the Lord of the Decepticons knew that Megatron was anything but calm at the moment. He was likely to explode with rage at any moment. I cannot speak for what happened in Europia, Lord Megatron, but I assume full responsibility for our failure in the Chinese Federation. Schneisel said. I underestimated Optimus Prime resourcefulness, as well as the arrogance of the High Eunuchs. I can say the same for what happened in Europia, Master. Skybite added. I underestimated these so-called wyverns as well as Zero. While failures are to be expected of a Sharkticon. Starscream gave a not-so-subtle insult towards Skybite, who turned toward him with a glare, as the leader of the Seekers continued. There is also the reasonable event, which was not our fault, of Grimlock appearing on the scene, and having been strengthened enough to the point he could nearly match Bruticus in combat. And that, I believe, was Shockwave's doing, as he was the one who captured and experimented on the Autobot to make him an even graver threat than before. Slam. Asterisk. Megatron's fist slammed on the throne, silencing all three of them as he stood up in fury. Do you three have any notion of the consequences of such failure? Despite the humans' weak form, their entire species outnumbers our forces 100 to 1. United under the command of Zero and Optimus, with the resources provided by the Autobots, they may now have the means to overwhelm us completely. I fear you are giving the human race far too much credit, Lord Megatron. Schneisel said. Yes, they outnumber us, but they're still chaotic at their core. They won't be able to fully unite against us, at least not right away. Yes, we have time. Starscream added. The Autobots and Black Knights will need a place to bring this planet's leadership together in order to establish this union. Let me take our fleet and burn it to the ground. And where exactly do you believe they are based, Starscream? Megatron asked, causing Starscream to stutter. We have no means to locate them. And I cannot send my fleet to scour this planet, because it must remain to guard this single and only continent that we have full control over. If it scatters to locate the enemy's base, we run the risk of a full-scale invasion. Then perhaps once Damocles has been completed, Skybite suggested, we could incinerate every major city on the planet and scourge the surface of the Earth. Damocles is not ready, Megatron exclaimed. By the time such an extensive project is completed, our enemies may have already built their front. What of the Nemesis, my lord? Starscream continued to stutter. Surely it must be operational by now. Megatron scoffed before walking over to a nearby console and making contact with the Decepticon in charge of the repairs of the Decepticon flagship. Knockout, how is progress on the Nemesis repairs? Lord Megatron, the Energon infuser and power core are fully repaired. Knockout reported. However, all other major systems are ranging between 50 to 60% repaired. Damage sustained during the fight against the Ark as well as being partly submerged in lava is rather significant. I'm sorry, but it will take some time before the Nemesis is airborne again. Time is one thing we do not have, Knockout. Megatron scowled. If we are to be ready before Prime and Lelouch are, we may have to take a more drastic option. Lord Megatron, as your physician, I strongly advise against this. Knockout told him as Megatron had arrived on the Nemesis via ground bridge, along with a large container of a certain dark substance. Dark Energon's regenerative properties are impressive, but the side effects, there's no telling how it might impact the ship. Megatron's optics were already glowing dark purple, the dark Geass flashing in both his eyes. Dark Energon courses through my veins. Infusing the warship will enable me to manipulate the craft as we are one, but this is merely a test. Once we are certain Dark Energon works, we will distribute it to the rest of my fleet. Just as I was able to control legions of the undead, I will be able to manipulate my armada with but a thought. And together, we shall finally crush Optimus Prime and Zero, ending their united front of this planet before it even began. And this at the end of Season 2 Part 8 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.